Welcome into the Midday Show. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through it over the next 4 hours here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Beat the Mets. Beat the Mets. This team finally stepped up and beat the Mets. The Phillies with a 1-0 win over the New York Mets last night. We will get into that coming up on today's show. We also have the coordinator pressers today for the Birds. We'll talk to Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds and Philly Voice at 1:25, and we will talk to Todd Zeleki of MLB.com coming up at 12:25 about this Phillies team. A lot of news before that game, but looking specifically at that game last night, a lot of things you would love to see, obviously, with that pitching staff, and starting with the man who got the start last night, Aaron Nola. I could celebrate a good Nola start in the year 2025. Sean Rodman, I'm fired up today for that. 6 scoreless for Nola. They threw him back out there for the 6th inning, and he had to deal with a lot of the top of that order of the Mets, and he was able to keep it 6 scoreless. He strikes out 7, allows just 3 hits, 2 walks. What a night for Aaron Nola. Velo was back. He was mixing his pitches. He looked like Aaron Nola for a night, and it was a welcome change from what we've seen. I still don't have him in the 3 starters for the postseason, but it was beautiful to celebrate a nice Nola night at the ballpark. And following him, the bullpen, Robertson, Strahm, Duran. Yeah, there were some tense moments, but all that matters, still 0 on the scoreboard. The Phillies win that game. They were able to scratch across 1 run, as we are going to look at what that lineup may look like going forward. But for the big takeaway from last night, it is Aaron Nola, and it is the conversation of whether he can do enough over September to make you feel good about putting him out there in the postseason. And barring anything changing with any of the 3 left-handers right now, I think he does have a pretty tough task in my eyes for me to feel comfortable and for me to feel like he should be above one of those 3 guys in the postseason rotation. I think it still is Sanchez, Suarez, Luzardo in my eyes. Even after last night, even after what you saw, I could get very excited about the fact that if they get to an NLCS, that 4th game, you might toss out a 4th starter that can give you actual length in that game and not necessarily be a bullpen game, which might give you an advantage depending on the opponent you have in that series. And that's nice to see. And I understand the pedigree Nola has. I've been one of the bigger Nola guys at this station. Last night for me was just a step in the right direction. Just a step in the right direction for the guy. It was good to watch. It felt, again, like I was watching the Aaron Nola I grew accustomed to for a long time. He has a lot over the next month that he would have to prove to me, and not a lot of opportunity to prove to me to get back into that top 3. Again, if I was in charge. Could I see the world in which the Phillies say to you, well, we want to break up those lefties, got to break up the lefties somehow. We're going to get Nola in there. I could see the world they do that. But still, for me, even after last night, 3 lefties in a row, I feel very good about the Nola I saw, and I'll feel better about the fact that maybe he's number 4 when it comes to an NLCS, but nothing more than that out of last night for Aaron Nola. More of just an encouraging sign that anything changed my mind about the way my postseason rotation looks. And I want to jump into a conversation here after last night. It feels fitting just because Bader has 3 hits. Robertson has an inning where not only does he strike out 2, but he fields his position. That man's in his 40s out there, fielding his position, moving to his left, going up the line, tossing that one to first. Look at David Robertson making plays out there defensively. I'd love to see it. Robertson has the night that he has, and then Duran closes it out for the Phillies. Might have been aided by a little bit of hesitation on the base paths by the Mets, but who cares? He's able to close them out. I got to experience it in person the first time, the entrance, the bell going. I can hear Vicente's translation of the song going in my head right now as Duran runs his way on in. And looking at those 3 guys specifically in that game and what they've meant to this team since the trade deadline. Since August 1st, the Phillies have the 2nd best record in Major League Baseball. And since being added to the team, Bader sports an 889 OPS. Remember, we are only a few weeks removed from him being a little annoyed about the way, or at least reportedly annoyed with the way his at-bats were going. Felt like he wasn't getting himself into a rhythm. He had kind of gotten off to that slow start while he was here. Since then, he has certainly figured it out, and he's got an 889 OPS in 32 games as a Philly. 3 home runs, 11 extra base hits, 11 RBI. A nice run for him since he got here. Duran, 16 games since he got here. 13 and 2/3. 12 saves. A 1.32 ERA. His strikeout per 9 inning has gone up since he got here. Hasn't walked anyone. Robertson, 13 games. 11 and 2/3. A 2.31 ERA. A 13.1 strikeout per 9 innings. Also, one of the more impressive things with Bader, and I know some of the people are going to cringe when I use the stat war. I'm only using this to prove a point. In the 32 games he's been here, Baseball Reference has him at a .8 WAR. Kepler, Castellanos, Rojas, and Marsh combined this season. I'm sorry to group Marsh in there because Marsh has had a solid season. .6. Marsh obviously the one dragging that up. But he's been more valuable than all 4 of those guys combined. Again, Marsh has been more valuable for him, and that's just as a Philly. The point in bringing all those numbers up to you is something I said last week, just midway through a show. Like, when are we going to at least acknowledge what they did midseason was good? And I like the fact they go and grab Miza, the fact they go out there and take the dart throw at Trevino, the fact they take a dart throw at Buehler, just trying to find other guys to fill out this pitching staff. Maybe someone catches on. Maybe someone shows you something before October that you're like, that guy has to be on the roster. But what they did from the middle of July to the deadline, the Robertson signing, trading for Duran, trading for Bader, there has to be credit given to Dave Dombrowski. I understand. When you are the one that creates the flawed roster, we have to hold you accountable for that. But there's a lot of different avenues that Dombrowski could have gone down to address said flawed roster that would have looked a lot worse. For example, I know we had a solid night last night against the Phillies. Helsley. We would be ripping Dombrowski nonstop if he had traded prospects for a rental who has pitched the way Helsley has for the Mets. Go pick out any underperforming outfielder that they potentially could have looked into and brought here, and we would be ripping the guy to no end for the moves he made. What Dombrowski did in getting Bader stabilized that outfield, because you're getting production from at least one outfield spot in Bader, but mostly getting production from the outfield as a whole, because it's opened up the world in which you can use their outfield rotation, platoon, fill in whatever word you like. They're getting outfield production because they brought in Bader, and it stabilized what they were capable of doing at the corners. And he has been good in center field. Not just in the field, which we know he is, but also at the plate. You saw that bullpen last night where 2 of those 3 innings were guys that Dombrowski brought in from mid-July to the deadline. Robertson ended up being well worth the price tag, despite the fact he was old and a lot of people were wondering why he wasn't in baseball. And Duran, I don't think I have to sell you on the guy that everyone's just waiting to see his entrance every night. Dombrowski deserves credit for the fact that he addressed the flawed roster in a way that has allowed the Phillies to run over this last month plus to the second best record in baseball since the trade deadline. That's something that's important to acknowledge here, because now, with the news with Trey Turner, with the news about Alec Bohm, with the fact that you are going to be without Zach Wheeler, you've built yourself a cushion in your division. 8 games today, by the way. Like to say hi to the guys that talked to me at the 7 line up there in New York after the 3-game sweep. I hope you guys are still feeling good today. 8 games in the division, and you have the cushion over the Dodgers right now for that second seed to get yourself a bye and set up your pitching, which could be incredibly valuable for you, especially in the world without Zach Wheeler. There has to be credit given to Dombrowski, no matter how upset you find yourself with the way the roster was constructed coming into the year. I didn't like the Kepler signing. I was very clear about that. Didn't think they did enough for the bullpen coming into the season. But you could acknowledge that and also give credit for the fact that he looked at this roster, and it looks like he's pulled a lot of the right levers to put this team in a position to compete in October. That's the biggest thing for me today. And I'm curious if you can give him that credit right now at 610-632-0975, because I know how much he drives people crazy around here, how much the way this roster is designed drives people crazy around here in Philadelphia. That's what stuck out to me from last night. Bader goes 3 for 4. I know I tweeted 3 for 3. That's on me. Hey, a little bit of a propaganda on that one. That was my bad. I just enjoyed the first 3 hits so much that I forgot about that horrible fourth at bat. That's on me. That's my bad. I have to own that one. Robertson, masterclass. 2 strikeouts, field in his position. 40 years old, man. He's getting off the mound like that. Come on. And Duran, it got dicey there. But Francisco Alvarez is still trying to figure out where those pitches were that he swung at in that last at-bat. Phillies with the 1-0 win. We will get into the rash of injury news that we got prior to that game. Brandon Marsh was there, but sleeping somewhere. He has the flu. That's why he wasn't in the lineup. It was like the least of the things that we had to go through yesterday. We'll get you Turner talking about his hamstring. And come up at the bottom of the hour, the Birds made a move. We'll break it down. What does it mean for this team? I'm Ray Dunn. Take you through the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Philly fans, you are the best. Philly fans, you are the best sports fans in the world. You're not stupid, so why should you have to hear outlandish takes that make you shake your head?
You shouldn't. That's why Unfiltered is the show for you. Each afternoon from 2 to 6, we only bring you honest opinions and analysis.
We may not agree all the time, but what you hear is what we genuinely believe. It's not some rage bait to try to spark conversation. So make the switch to Unfiltered with me, Bill Colarulo, my man Ricky Bo, and Silvana Kelleher.
Every weekday at 2 p.m. right here on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Philly fans, you are the best sports fans in the world. You're not stupid, so why should you have to hear outlandish takes that make you shake your head?
You shouldn't. That's why Unfiltered is the show for you. Each afternoon from 2 to 6, we only bring you honest opinions and analysis.
We may not agree all the
That's right, Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Ray Dunn taking you through it. Busy show for you today. Coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll have the coordinator pressers. They will be on time. Kevin Patulo, the official coordinator of this program, will be on time because we know he's always on time. Vic Fangio on time. Believe that Colarulo's boy yesterday was late for him. Ended up being like a 3:20 start time.
He was a little late. I don't know the exact time, but he was a little late.
So, tough scene. Hate to see that, you know? If you can't show up for family, who will you show up for? I mean, that's the tough nature of yesterday. But it's all right. We got the coordinator pressers. We got Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds and Philly Voice coming up at 1:25 to talk Birds, and Todd Zeleki from MLB.com talking Phillies coming up at 12:25. And speaking of those Phillies, open up the topic today. Can you bring yourself to give credit for what Dave Dombrowski did from mid-July to the trade deadline to improve this roster? Say, hey, we need help in this bullpen. Probably don't just need one arm. All right, we'll go out and get David Robertson. We will be the team that gets to David Robertson first, which is important. They were not the only team that scouted him. They were there. They told him they wanted an answer quick. They gave him the money that he wanted. Next thing you know, he's a Philly. Since that time, 2.31 ERA. We need another arm. We really need a lockdown arm at the end of this bullpen. All right, go out and get Duran. All he's done for you, 1.32 ERA and 12 saves. Not bad. Not bad. Certainly not bad. What'd you give up to get him? You had to have given up a lot. Prospects 4 and 6. Tight and Abel. So you were able to keep your top 3 prospects and able to land that guy? I saw a report out of Seattle. The Mariners thought they were going to get Duran. Not to be. Not to be. Dave Dombrowski does it. And then on deadline day, I remember how underwhelmed people were. Harrison Bader, really? That guy? Well, he's got more power this year. And if you're looking at center field, you were trotting out a guy that was a defensive-based center fielder that gave you nothing offensively. Now you got a guy that's giving you stuff offensively, is a really good defensive center fielder. Is it time to give the guy credit for what he did at the deadline to improve this roster? I'm all for criticizing what his offseason was. I'm all for saying, hey, at some point it's going to come down to what they do in the postseason. That's how we'll reassess the way this went. But it's fair to say that his deadline has put them in a much better position going into the postseason than you could have hoped if someone at the beginning of the season told you, yeah, by the way, Harper's going to miss some time. By the way, Turner's going to go down in September. You're going to have Bohm out for a period of time. You're going to lose Wheeler in August. Like, again, I think that's worth at least acknowledging. And I'm curious if you can at 610-632-0975. Now, we got a lot of injury updates prior to the Phillies game. So much so that the subject line from Phillies PR was just roster updates. They didn't even give you everything that was going on because they couldn't fit all into one subject line in the email. Trey Turner, 10-day injured list. Alec Bohm, 10-day injured list. Otto Kemp, backup. Donovan Walton. Who? Donovan Walton. They traded the Mets for earlier this season. He's up. He's going to take the spot on the 40-man of Daniel Robert, who is transferred to the 60-day injured list. So they add Walton, the infielder. Kemp, we know, plays infield, outfield. And they put Bohm, Turner on the 10-day. Robert goes to the 60-day injured list. Listen to Turner talking about the injury itself that he suffered on Sunday against the Marlins.
This we thought was pretty similar to last year, but it's better. It's kind of smaller. It's in the same area on the opposite side, but smaller. So I think that's a good sign. And getting this one done showed my one from last year healed really well too. So I guess that's a positive there. But just felt like a lot of volume this year, a lot of sprinting, and I think I was a little dehydrated, that day, and probably had something to do with it. But sometimes you try to play through days you don't feel great or this or that or whatever it is, and things can pop up, and this is one of them, so you got to deal with it and try to put it behind you.
So he's comparing it to last year's hamstring, which was on the other leg, where it took him 6 weeks to get back. Says this one's better, this one a grade 1, that one was a grade 2. That leads you to ask, when is the timeline for Trey Turner to come back. Here is Turner talking about the timetable.
As soon as possible, obviously, but more importantly for the playoffs is obviously, I think, the most important. So trying to find that, fine line of trying to get ready for that, but also not rushing it back and coming back for no reason. But yeah, shooting for kind of the playoffs, if not hopefully a little bit earlier, but probably more towards the playoff.
All right, hopefully a little bit earlier is what he says. What does a little bit earlier look like for this team? This 10-day stretch is pretty important for them, which began last night with the 4 that they have against the Mets, then Kansas City, and then the Dodgers. Following that is a 9-game stretch to close out the season. Arizona, Miami, Minnesota. Maybe the last series of the season to try and get him out there and just get his timing back. But let's all be honest with ourselves. If they have locked themselves into the 2 seed at that point, he's going to have a week off anyway to get his time. Always good to get his time back. He's going to get fresh. I'd rather him just be fresh. So I don't know logically where he fits into getting back before the end of the regular season. I'm just more grateful at the fact that he seems to believe he'll be back at some point by the postseason. Makes it all the more vital for you to lock up that 2nd seed. Makes next week vital for you, and that brings me to another point here. Bohm goes to the injured list. Bohm going to the injured list for 10 days during this 10-day stretch, obviously not ideal for a lot of reasons. You're already down Turner. You're going to be looking at this lineup like, where is right-handed Pop coming from? Or just, where's the big right-handed bat? Because when we talk about Bohm, I know when I say Pop, people are like, well, it doesn't homer. All right. Where's someone at the top of the lineup that's right-handed that's going to be able to help you out? I'll remind you that without Alec Bohm, while he was on the injured list, as much as he can annoy you, as much as he can upset you, the Phillies were 29th in batting average from their third baseman in that time without him across baseball. 27th in on-base percentage at that time. 20th in OPS from their third base spot during the time that Bohm was out. And 27th in walk-to-strikeout rate from their third baseman in the time that Bohm was out. Their production from third base stunk when he was out. Point blank, period. That is something to watch when we talk about a critical stretch here against better teams on the 10 days that he'll be on the injured list. And obviously, if this were to linger, moving forward. That Dodgers series, assuming you could keep business as usual going through this week, through the end of the week, get to the Dodgers series, maybe 3 up, 4 up. That Dodgers series obviously looms very large for this team in getting that 2nd seed, and them being without the entire left side of their infield is something that does concern me moving forward, especially knowing the production that they did not get from third base when Bohm was out earlier this season. And the plan to replace him, not all that different than the last time, except it's probably going to be a lot more Kemp because Sosa's now going to have to man shortstop. So that's a little thing that I'm keeping my eye on as we continue to move forward, but that was the updates you got. I don't know if there's any other way they're going to be able to manage. If you have a way that you would rather them manage that left side of the infield, I'm all ears at 610-632-0975. We'll continue the conversation about Dombrowski and the Phillies, but coming up, there was a deal made yesterday. One of those, all right, what does it mean for the Eagles? Howie Roseman working the phones. Is he the only guy that the phone works for right now in the NFL? It feels like the Eagles just running laps trade-wise around the rest of the National Football League. We'll react to the Tanks Bigsby deal when we come back here on the Midday Show. I'm Ray Dunn on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Aaron Nola flashes. I'm Sean Rodman, and Aaron Nola did not allow a run yesterday in 6 innings of work in the Phillies' win last night over the Mets. Phils are back in action against the Mets tonight with Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phillies and Sean Manaea for the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45. Phillies will be without Trey Turner again tonight as he was placed on the IL. Turner was diagnosed with a grade 1 strain on his hamstring. Here is Turner on his potential timetable to return.
As soon as possible, obviously, but more importantly for the playoffs is obviously, I think, the most important. So trying to find that fine line of trying to get ready for that, but also not rushing it back.
Alec Bohm was also added to the IL yesterday with a shoulder injury. MLB.com's Todd Zeleki will join us at 12:25 on the state of the Phillies. No update yet on the Jaylen Carter potential punishment quite yet, as the league's decision is still looming. The Eagles have reportedly traded for running back Tank Bigsby for a 5th and 6th rounder from the Jags. To the Jags, I should say. He is expected to help with kick returns, and the Eagles coordinators are scheduled to speak to the media at 11:30. This update is brought to you by Mattress Firm. Need better sleep? Upgrade to a premium bed now at Mattress Firm's best sale of the year. They make sleep easy. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the best Birds coverage, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from, about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
We got to do the old
slow start.
Julio Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed and shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down. It's kind of a weird game to assess because both offenses really started to stall after the delay of game, and nobody could be stopped, before the Lightning came, and then after the Lightning came, nobody could score. So how much of that is Patulo adjustments, etc. There were a couple corner blitzes in succession that I watched where the offense just didn't really seem to have a great answer for. So I don't think it was a perfect game for Patulo. I think there are things to clean up, but I think if you look at it as a whole, the fact that it's his first game calling plays, first game working that operation with Jalen Hurts, and that they got off to that fast start, there's probably more encouraging things than not to build off of.
Speaking of encouraging, Jahad Campbell just absolutely, I thought, acquitted himself more than adequately. Playing alongside a guy like Zach Bond, I think that Vic Fangio, for me, a guy like Vic Fangio that wants to be able to run certain things, he's got two guys that are going to be able to run, I think, everything that he would like to. You gave him car keys to 2 Maseratis, and I think that this is something that I think he's going to get better. He's still going to make those mistakes, and you're going to see that, but I would think that that's a guy that certainly has turned a lot of heads and has given into some of the expectations at this point early on.
An embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Right?
What
who are we? Who are we?
What is going on? I don't even know who we are anymore. At Campbell, I agree. What a debut. He flashed every day during training camp. It wasn't always perfect. In fact, I think in pass coverage was really sometimes where it got shaky. I remember a couple times that he gave up, whether it was a wheel route against Will Shipley or a touchdown to where he blew an assignment during the joint practices against the Browns, and you're like, okay, the passing game's maybe where he needs some refinement, and then you see that play where he just carries the field with Ferguson and comes up with that PBU, and it's like linebackers really don't do that. So you recognize that you have a special talent, and to your point, Amy, it's paired with another special talent in Zach Bond, who has a similar skill set in that way. That just opens up so many things. While we're talking about the restrictions in the secondary with the questions at safety and CB2 in particular, the flip side of that for Fangio is that if you have 2 linebackers like that, man, how creative can you get? And what different looks can you present an offense that they're not normally presented because they just don't have that ability at the linebacker position. So it's a new day in Philadelphia, I guess.
Working our way through the 10 o'clock hour here on the Midday Show on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Ray Dunn taking you through it. Sean Rodman producing the program. Open up the show talking about kind of relitigating and looking back at that trade deadline. It was something I mentioned kind of offhanded last week. It was just one of those, something I've been thinking about. You know me. I just something that just crept into my mind. And watching that game last night, being there. By the way, can we put to bed the Phils can't beat the Mets when Rays in attendance narrative?
What's your record now this year? 1-2? Was that
2-2.
2-2.
2-2.
But their 2 wins have been at Citizens Bank Park.
Correct. I
how
can't
about-
win at Citi Field, but neither can the Phillies. So really, is that a me problem? Is that a skill issue? I don't think that's a me thing.
I'm not willing to test it again. How about that?
If they play them in the postseason, I can assure you I'm not going up to New York.
Yeah.
I would wear that loss if I went up there to New York and they lost. So I just want to put that to bed. Being at the game last night, they beat the Mets 1-0. Obviously, you get excited because, hey, Nola, let's go. Great to see him pitch 6 innings, scoreless, look close to the Nola that you want to see. But I watched Robertson come out there and strike out 2 guys, field his position. Bader, 3 for 4. Again, I erroneously tweeted 3 for 3. I wanted to forget that 4th at bat. My bad. That's on me. Chest pat, that's on me. I take accountability for my actions on that one. It's a shame because I don't think anyone's acknowledging my follow-up tweet apologizing. Everyone's just acknowledging the original tweet where I said he was 3 for 3. So that's on me. And then Duran, I got to see the entrance. And he closed out his 12th save as a Philly. And I sit there like, man, we should probably be giving Dave Dombrowski more credit for fixing this roster. And it's interesting because there will be people that are like, well, he shouldn't get credit for fixing his mistakes. It is the town that is always about Howie's season, right? We remember the mistakes that Howie made. We give him credit for the fact that A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are here, right? He had to make mistakes to get to that point. There's other receivers that could be here. He corrected those mistakes. We acknowledge there were mistakes made, but we give him credit for the fact that he was able to get the guys he got and fix the roster that he put together. I want to see, I want to see it even on that one. Now, I'm curious because we got a texter at 610-632-0975. If you're able to give Dave Dombrowski credit for fixing some of the holes in this roster and putting them in a better position going into the postseason. What do we got on the text line, Rodney?
No name on this from this texter, but this person saying, I hate most of the moves Dombrowski did this season, but he has proven us all wrong and has shown why he's a good GM and why I should shut my mouth and watch it play out.
Wow.
Strong words.
Whoa. Did not anticipate that one. I thought we were going to get the more, hey, they're playing well right now. We'll see what happens type of vibe. The I guess I should shut my mouth is not what I expected off the bat from the text line here. Did not anticipate that one in the slightest when it comes to this past trade deadline. If anything, I thought people were going to be saying that I should shut my mouth for the fact that I'm suggesting we give the guy credit in September for the moves he made back in July. How about that? And he didn't like most of them. I feel like Duran was unanimously cheered. So I guess it would be Robertson and Bader are the 2 that he's talking about. Because
I would assume if he's adding in Kepler as well.
Those are, that's offseason.
You could do Romano. I don't know if that's being factored into
I'm not giving him credit for those. Those stunk.
I'm aware.
I'm talking about addressing the holes here. I was very critical of the offseason. Did not appreciate this offseason. But we got so far. Hey. Like what you got. Now, I mentioned Howie Roseman in this segment. The Eagles did make a trade yesterday. It was one of those, I'm looking at my phone like, Tank Bigsby. Not exactly where yesterday we were talking about needs for this team, but with the trade, you assume, and it's been now widely, I want to say reported and speculated, both that Will Shipley's going to be out for a little while after the rib injury he suffered on Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys. So Shipley being out, you needed to add to that running back room because, depth-wise, you could use someone while he's out. Also, Bigsby gives you the opportunity to return kicks. He was stuck in a crowded backfield in Jacksonville, didn't really differentiate himself. He doesn't necessarily fit entirely the Shipley role because I don't see him catching many passes out of the backfield. I don't necessarily think he's going to be back there blocking for the passing game. So I don't think it's entirely a fit in that regard. It makes me wonder, with Shipley's health, is there another guy on this team that should be looking around like, oh no, A.J. Dillon wake up today like, hey, I had a couple nice runs, man. Why don't do this to me? Don't do this to me, man. And he has a couple weeks here, and then maybe once Shipley comes back, it is a Barkley, Shipley, Bigsby backfield. That's kind of where I went with this. I will say, it's only a fifth and it's only a sixth. Don't overreact. I'm not overreacting. It's a little bit of a rich price for a guy that I see more as a complimentary role guy. I understand the needs there for the kick returner. The needs there for another running back. You fill that need. I just think with other needs on this roster, keeping as much ammunition draft pick-wise is probably more the way I would lean. But, hey, it's Howie season. He helps that running back room. I just come away with this like, all right, it means Shipley's out for a bit. If I were Dillon, I'd be concerned about my long-term future here. And they're like, all right, I guess you got better. Marginally to the point where I think it's like something to celebrate today. Not yet. I know now that I say this, he's going to run one in against the Chiefs, and we could play this audio on Monday, and I'll look like an idiot. But I didn't necessarily have the Howie season response that everyone did to that one yesterday. I'm curious how people feel about the move at 610-632-0975. That's just the takeaway I had from it, that we're not going to see Shipley for a bit. I wonder when A.J. Dillon gets back, when Shipley gets back, it does not bode well for A.J. Dillon now that you've made this move for Bigsby. And, 2 draft picks for running back that, at full power of this team is probably going to be third on the pecking order. Not necessarily something that I love when you have needs on the other side of the football. But, hey, 53 stronger today than it was yesterday, and you'll take that. Coming up next, speaking of the 53 and the needs they have, we've talked a lot about edge rusher. Something I heard from Sirianni yesterday while he was speaking couldn't help but make me think about something I heard last September from him, talking about that edge rusher room. I'll explain to you. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through middays here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Attention.
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from, about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
We got to do the old
slow start.
Julio Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed and it shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down. It's kind of a weird game to assess because both offenses really started to stall after the delay of game. And nobody could be stopped, before the lightning came, and then after the lightning came, nobody could score. So, how much of that is Patulo adjustments, etc. There were a couple corner blitzes in succession that I watched where the offense just didn't really seem to have a great answer for. So I don't think it was a perfect game for Patulo. I think there are things to clean up, but I think if you look at it as a whole, the fact that it's his first game calling plays, first game working that operation with Jalen Hurts, and that they got off to that fast start, there's probably more encouraging things than not to build off of.
Speaking of encouraging, Jahad Campbell just absolutely, I thought, acquitted himself more than adequately. Playing alongside a guy like Zach Bohm, I think that Vic Fangio, for me, a guy like Vic Fangio that wants to be able to run certain things, he's got 2 guys that are going to be able to run, I think, everything that he would like to run. You gave him car keys to 2 Maseratis, and I think that this is something that I think he's going to get better. He's still going to make those mistakes, and you're going to see that, but I would think that that's a guy that certainly has turned a lot of heads and has given into some of the expectations at this point early on.
An embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Right? Who are we? Who are we?
What is going on? I don't even know who we are anymore. And Campbell, I agree. What a debut. He flashed every day during training camp. It wasn't always perfect. In fact, I think in pass coverage was really sometimes where it got shaky. I remember a couple times that he gave up, whether it was a wheel route against Will Shipley or a touchdown to where he blew an assignment during the joint practices against the Browns. And you're like, okay, the passing game's maybe where he needs some refinement. And then you see that play where he just carries the field with Ferguson and comes up with that PBU. And it's like, linebackers really don't do that. So you recognize that you have a special talent. And to your point, Amy, it's paired with another special talent in Zach Bohm, who has a similar skill set in that way. That just opens up so many things. Like, while we're talking about the restrictions in the secondary with the questions at safety and CB2 in particular, the flip side of that for Fangio is that if you have two linebackers like that, like, man, how creative can you get? And what different looks can you present an offense that they're not normally presented because they just don't have that ability at the linebacker position. So it's a new day in Philadelphia, I guess.
Casey boy, gotta learn his lesson. Back-to-back nights. If you were watching football, you turned off the game. If you were like Sean Rodman, turned off the game, went to bed, you missed big second halves. Come on. Always love when Casey comes down, says hi to us down here, and always love catching up with him. My friend down a while, but, we get a chance to catch up. He's not far from me in the Crest. We're down there down the shore, so I always love seeing Casey. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you to the midday show here on 97.5 The Fanatic, but can't turn those games off. Last night, I made sure. Walk right across the street after that Phillies game. Get to watch the entire second half. Thoroughly enjoyed watching that game. Even if DeAndre Swift did not provide enough for my fantasy team for me to get the win in one of my 11 leagues. The league that I was really locked in on last night. But, it's all right. I'm not going to be upset today. And I'm not necessarily upset about the Tanks Bigsby trade. I don't want to come across like I'm like, oh, the Bigsby trade's the worst. I just look at it and I say, I understand you have a lot of draft capital that you have coming up in the next couple of years, so there's more to use. But I would prefer to have more ammunition to attack more pressing needs. And you can look and say, hey, that backup running back spot, it's important. Does Bigsby exactly fit the Shipley role? No, not really. Will it help you in the kick return game? Sure. And the reason I'm not upset over anything is because I think the 53-man roster got better. I'm just not so sure situationally where his use is and what it leads to the long-term picture here. But Reed in North Philly wants to get in on the conversation about the trade. Reed, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Hey, what's up, sir?
How are you?
First of all, 11 fantasy leagues, man. I tell you ain't got no kids.
Nope. No kids, no girlfriend. I'm not busy, Reed. I got this. I got sports. That's my life.
You got to do daily fantasy, bro. Anyway, man. Yeah, I mean, I guess I guess the producer told you my thoughts. We have, that's how he does, man. He stacks the late round picks so he can address a need. And, Bigsby, the 24-year-old back, he averaged almost 5 yards to carry last year. And, you're right. I think A.J. Dillon might be, kind of looking over his shoulder a little bit. But with the kickoff rules and 77% of the kick returns happening last week, we got to get somebody back there that we feel can give us some production in that way as well. So,
I see the numbers for him last year, and I see the role that they could carve out for him special teams wise. And I don't want to be just special teams ignorant, I guess would be the way I'd phrase that. It's just, for me, when I look at this team and I look at the ammunition you have to make deals, I look at the edge rusher position, and I know they've tried to address that with Zadarius Smith, and we'll see how that goes. I look at the secondary, and I'm like, would I prefer making that deal week one to go address what I'm hoping is not a long-term absence for Shipley, or would I rather have that in the chest to go after something to help the defense later on?
I feel that. But I think Bennett's going to be fine, man. I do. According to the reports coming out of Vegas, it was just his injuries is the only reason. And he did play 12 games last year. And he had the penalty the other day. But other than that penalty, he was solid. He's solid.
Yeah, I don't think he had a bad game. And I think he can be something for you. I understand what you're saying, Reed. I see, he can be something for you. I will say it's interesting when the Raiders basically have to replace their entire secondary, they're willing to give up on a guy. That's, again, something. How he's working at the margins. And are they better with Bennett versus someone else that was here in camp? They're better with Bennett. Are they better with Bigsby than what they might have rolled out here as a third running back this week? They're better with Bigsby. That's all very true. I just always keep a skeptical eye of how the fit goes with this team. Bennett, I feel more encouraged by because I do think he ends up the second corner here, and I think more encouraged by given what else is in the room with him. Bigsby, I was just like, all right, sure, take a shot at it. I'm just a little skeptical on the whole fit of it and how it ends up working out for you later on this season when hopefully you're fully healthy. Now, we have a little Pro Football Talk tweet here from earlier this morning that I wanted to get to here because Jaylen Carter, we still haven't gotten the news. And Pro Football Talk saying the lack of a Jaylen Carter punishment on Monday led to a reasonable assumption that he won't be suspended. However, we're told a suspension is still on the table. So that kind of follows what Jeff McClain told the morning guys that not necessarily resolved. But what more is there to litigate here? What more do we have to figure out in this situation?
I think some of it has to do with the Lamar Jackson shove. I think probably has some. Because are they going to suspend one of the top quarterbacks in the league a game?
No.
So then Jaylen Carter probably wouldn't be suspended in that right too.
All right. Good. We just decided that. You know how long that took us?
5 seconds.
Yeah. All right.
Not even.
Decision made. Move on. We're on to Kansas City. Let's focus on Kansas City. I don't know. Hey, Roger, what do you got going on? Nothing much, man. Just trying to figure out what's going on with the NFLPA these days. You got a second for us? Yeah, sure. What do you think about the whole Jaylen Carter situation? I don't know. Well, are you going to suspend Lamar Jackson? Oh, hell no. All right, well, it's probably not fair to suspend Carter. All right, sounds good, man. Good talk. We'll talk to you soon. Right?
Hey, maybe you should be working for the NFL.
I mean, if they want me, I'm more than happy to do it. It just seems very easy. Just, if that's what's holding you up, who out there honestly believes they're going to suspend Lamar?
I don't think you can. You can't suspend one of your top guys in the league like that.
Also, that fan, good that they're kicking him out for life.
Yes.
You're not a part of the game, bro. We're not you go to the fan as a fan to a game. Your arena is outside of the field of play, outside of anything beyond where that fence goes. Don't reach over and hit a guy. All right, real quick, because we did open up talking about Dave Dombrowski. I know our guy Greg in Bethlehem wants to get to it. Greg, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Morning, guys. I have mixed emotions on Dombrowski. I guess I'd invoke the traditional, if you start the fire and you put it out, do you get credit? And, that's kind of where I am. I mean, I think I'm going to say, redeemed himself at the trade deadline to take care of a deficiency that he created in the offseason. So, I don't know. How are we supposed to feel? I guess I feel good because he recognized the issue and dealt with it, but I don't feel good about him creating the issue to start with.
Well, yeah, and we rightly criticized him for a lot of the early portion of this season, for the bullpen, for the lack of outfield production. We clamored for that at the trade deadline, but I think him coming through and delivering that is important. If I make like Greg, let's say you and I invite you over to have dinner, and I'm not that great a cook. I make you a crappy dinner. But then I order out something nice, and then we have a good meal anyways. Listen, you're going to have that thought in the back of your head like, wow, that first meal, that stunk. But it was really nice of him to order food so that we ended up having a nice meal, right?
Well, I mean, I give credit for him recognizing the issue that he created, and, that's where I give him credit. But I would have liked to have seen him not create the issue to start with.
Well, obviously, I would have loved for him to put the perfect roster on the field early in the season as well. It would be great if they had done that initially. How many teams added at the deadline, though, because they didn't have that? We can complain, and we're right to complain all early summer long, all throughout the summer. Every week, we were right to complain about the bullpen when it didn't deliver. We were right to complain when the outfield wasn't producing. Now, when it is right to acknowledge that he went and corrected it. I think Greg's just mad because I said I didn't have any Mad Elves for him at that dinner. I think that's what it is. Appreciate you, Greg. All right, coming up, I mentioned that edge rusher position and something that Sirianni said that stuck out to me. Plus, it was an old interview, but Monday Night Football was back last night. Peyton and Eli were back. And it was revealed Peyton Manning does something that I think is crazy. I don't want to say insane, but I hate it. And I'm curious if people could join me on that side. A little off the beaten path here, but I want to address it coming up. I'm Ray Dunn. Take it to the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Aaron Nola is back, maybe? I'm Sean Rodman, and Aaron Nola did not allow a run yesterday in 6 innings of work in the Phillies' win last night. Phillies are back in action against the Mets with Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phillies tonight and Sean Manaea for the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45. Phillies will be without Trey Turner again tonight as he was placed on the IL. Turner was diagnosed with a grade 1 strain on his hamstring. Here is Turner on his potential timetable to return.
As soon as possible, obviously, but more importantly for the playoffs is obviously, I think, the most important. So trying to find that fine line of trying to get ready for that, but also not rushing it back.
Alec Bohm was also added to the injured list yesterday with a shoulder injury. MLB.com's Todd Zeleki will join us at 12:25 on the state of the Phillies. No update yet on any Jaylen Carter punishment quite yet as we wait the league's decision. The Eagles have reportedly traded for running back Tank Bigsby from the Jaguars for a 5th and 6th round pick. He's expected to help with kick returns, and the Eagles coordinators are scheduled to speak to the media at 11:30. This update is brought to you by local Can-Am dealer. Right now through October 31st, take advantage of the Can-Am factory sales on select 2025 Can-Am side-by-side or ATV vehicles. Conditions apply. Visit your Can-Am dealer for details. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the best birds coverage, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Really want to just find out from Howie. Why didn't you bring back Rodgers? Why didn't you bring back Isaiah Rodgers? You could have avoided this big void in your defense by simply re-signing Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, but
I
there's
said
something
this to you
here.
2 months ago.
You did.
I was right all along.
Yeah, you were. The whole point to this is you guys were both right about the situation. They should have kept Rodgers. There's no doubt about it. By the way, they didn't. Move on. Get off of that wagon.
You're right. You
you
move on.
both got to get off of that wagon.
You're correct.
Well,
I'm coming at you now too.
I don't keep bringing it up there, Skippy.
Skippy.
I love this.
No, you're right though. We got to move on. It's just frustrating when you're watching these games because
I know, but you
every offensive coordinator is going to attack the opposite cornerback to Quinyon Mitchell.
You got to think about how are they going to fix it now? Is it Jory Jackson the answer? I don't think so. After what I saw last night, I would say no.
you see how that skews people's opinions of things. You only read the headline. Oh, AJ must be upset. He didn't sound upset. He's going to do what he needs to do to win.
He sounded like he understood what happened.
Exactly. I was there. He wasn't upset. It's the way that it goes. He mentioned I can't control when the ball comes to me, but he talked about the effort and being ready when his number's called, and he always is ready when his number's called. So you see the effort and the toughness manifest in different ways. Sometimes you can't really – he finds ways to affect the game without always having to be ball-centric. But there's going to be games where he's going to get his, and that it could be 8 or 10 receptions in a game.
Really want to just find out from Howie. Why didn't you bring back Rodgers? Why didn't you bring back Isaiah Rodgers? You could have avoided this big void in your defense by simply re-signing Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, but
I
there's
said this to
something
you
here.
2 months ago.
You called me a bad sign. I'm going back and forth on the YouTube chat here. They got me laughing. MPTs. Said, you know where to find me if it doesn't work out for this team. The response he gave was not on the ring. They're a funny group. I'm Ray Dunn, taking through middays here at WPEN HD1, Burlington, Philadelphia, Beasley Media Group station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. Couple of Eagles thing. Well, one Eagles thing I want to get to. And then this Peyton Manning thing, which was very, very interesting to me. But yesterday, the head coach met with the media. Nick Sirianni, in the 3 o'clock hour during his favorite radio host show, spoke to the media. And out of it was a lot of coach speak. You know, the Carter situation, we're going to handle it internally. We got to get AJ the ball more. The offense goes through the stars, all those things. And part of his coach speak kind of caught my attention. Azeez Ojulari was brought in this offseason as depth at the edge rusher room. But these veterans, let's be honest, were an insurance policy. Ojulari's been in this league, had success, albeit like more of a flash in the pan sort of success, but had success in this league. Uche the same way. They were brought in as like, hey, if Jalix Hunt can't cut it as a, if he can't cut it as your second guy on the edge, where can we go from there? And with that, you thought maybe Ojulari and Uche are going to be a part of what they do, big part of the rotation, yet Ojulari is inactive on week 1, on that Thursday night. Sirianni was asked about the Zadarius Smith signing and what it means for that edge rusher room. And here is what he had to say about Azeez Ojulari.
It's always a tough conversation when you tell a guy that he's not going to be up for a game because they want to contribute and they want to play. And Azeez has done a lot of good things since he's been here. So, and I have no doubt that he's going to help us, win football games moving forward.
All right. Very much coach speak. But I heard that and the antenna went up. Sean Rodman, you know why the antenna went up?
Why is that, Ray?
because I remember doing this program last September. And it was a different level of player that they brought in here, at least different level of contract they brought in here to be an edge rusher. And that was Bryce Huff. So I went back and I was like, what made this click in my head? Here is Nick Sirianni from his September 23rd, 2024 presser talking about Bryce Huff.
I got a lot of faith in Bryce and the things that he can do. Obviously, that's why he's here. And I'm excited for the time where he's gonna have a big time game. And you know, I know he puts the work in. I know he's ultra talented, and I got no doubt in my mind that he's going to continue to get better and have a good impact on this football team.
And you say to yourself, wow, Ray, are you shocked a coach lied to you about what they thought about a player? Or are you shocked a coach overvalued his own guy while talking to the media? No, I'm not shocked. How long have I been around for this Nick Sirianni regime? I understand the way he hypes up his players, and that's just who he is as a coach. But I heard him talk about Ojulari, and my head was like, where have I heard something like that before? Oh, yeah, last year when he was trying to hype up Huff, despite the fact Huff wasn't getting the playing time. Ojulari didn't get any playing time, and the fact that he was inactive week 1. And then they bring in Zadarius Smith, that it makes me say, I'm interested to see where they go from here. Patrick Johnson gets elevated for the first game and now is actually a member of the 53-man roster. With him being on the 53, he actually partakes in special teams. Somebody in that edge rusher room, I would think their time is limited here in Philadelphia. Then changes are going to come. Zadarius Smith, as we talked about yesterday, is a great gamble in the sense of, oh, look at that room. You were not impressed with Ojulari enough to make him active week 1. Uche didn't have a bad week 1, but ultimately your pass rush needs to get better. Here's a guy that's been productive, and even at the age of 32, as a rotational guy, you saw a guy in his 30s last year be an impactful rotational guy for you in Brandon Graham. Why not? Why not roll with it? I just heard him talk about Ojulari yesterday, and immediately my mind went to, oh, yeah, this is just the Bryce Huff commentary. Where, like, yeah, he's been successful in this league. He's good. We like him. He's good here. He's going to help us win football games at some point. I don't buy it. I'm not going to buy it. Now, there's been plenty of things that I've bought from Sirianni before that have worked out for Sirianni. So he doesn't need me buying what he says for it to work out for him. But just something I was interested in, and I'm interested when we play Vic Fangio's presser live coming up here in the 11 o'clock hour, what he has to say about Ojulari being inactive week 1 and what he sees from that edge rusher room. But I do want to get to this one thing. It's a little bit off the path here. So my apologies for straying away for a second. But Eli Manning, I forget when he was on part of my take. But he was talking about planning the Peyton and Eli broadcast, which they do on Monday nights. I happen to like. Last night, Phil's game, and then going across the street, they were playing the audio of Monday Night Football, Buck Aikman. It's tough for Peyton and Eli to be going against Buck and Aikman, really, because I'm going to choose, as the broadcaster in me, I'm going to choose the broadcast most times. But I know when I'm home, my parents do enjoy the old Peyton and Eli broadcast, so I'll watch that with them. Eli being on with part of my take, they talked about, hey, here is the way you guys do prep. And we've heard that Peyton Manning sends you this every week to prepare. Take a listen to what Peyton sends his brother Eli to prepare for these broadcasts.
He went through every single play that Caleb Williams ran and gave like a memo on it. I'm like, that's not really the point. You don't have to give me every single play. Why would I even watch it now? Like, give me a little recap or something. So, and like that one. I mean, Caleb Williams only played a few series, so it was like 10 minutes. I was like, it'd be faster for me to just go watch the game than listen to your voice memos sometimes. But I mean, he's left me 35-minute voice memos. God. He started like leaving little, like halfway through the voice memos, he'd be like, Eli, this is a test to see if you're still listening, and have like some code word like, hey, the gravy was good.
So apparently Peyton sends him up to 35-minute long voice memos to prepare for these broadcasts, and puts little tests in the middle of the voice memos to see if he listened to the whole thing so that he would know. One, that's just wrong. That's wrong to do to your brother. As an older brother, I can't say that I've been a perfect older brother, but that's wrong to do to your younger brother. That's just plain wrong. Second, I don't know your experience with these type of people, Rodman, but those that have taken to the voice memo or the audio text message, talk to text is different. That's okay. You're putting text in a text. I'm sorry. I have the podcasts, the radio shows that I listen to. I listen to those people because I want to listen to their podcasts and their radio shows. Your text messages should not serve as a podcast or a radio show for me. I am decisively anti the voice memo as a message. The voice message to me is one of the more absurd things to send someone. Also, because if I am trying to respond to you while in a public place, do I really have to put my AirPods in to listen to what you have to say? Do I really have to play you in public walking around with my phone to my ear? It's incredibly inconsiderate, and I am very much against this. As big a Peyton Manning fan as I am, this is absurd and abhorrent, really. I mean, this is a disgrace. The voice memo, we need to not do that anymore. Send text the way texts were supposed to be sent, as text. None of this voice memo crap. Please and thank you.
I'm actually right there with you. I can do it without the voice memo text, especially because when you listen to them, like, if you're in a public place, how are you going to listen to them? Say you forgot your AirPods. Like, you're going to put your hand up to, or your phone up to your ear just to listen to it quietly so other people don't hear your private conversation with someone. At that point, call them. Just pick up the phone, call the person.
I'll be honest with you. I once ended it with the girl because she was a voice memo person.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I can't live like that. The voice message to me is just, you can't do that. I'm sorry if you're like that. We just wouldn't be compatible. But if you are sending me consistently, like, I get it. I talk a lot. Like, I talk for a living. So maybe it's very much hypocritical of me. But the voice message thing, the voice memo thing, I can't do it. I can't communicate that way. If you want to communicate over the phone and talk, that's great. But the voice memos back and forth, that to me is a step too far. If you want to text, text. If you want to call, call. This weird middle ground, don't stick me in purgatory, all right? Give me one of the two. Give me a text, give me a call. Heck, I'd even do the FaceTime. But the voice memo, not for me. Anti, decisively. And I'm curious for people where you land on this one. Give us a text at 610-632-0975. Coming up, getting back to the Phils, the game they had last night, the one thing that continues to linger against the Mets. We'll have the coordinator pressers for the Birds coming up later on this hour, but that one thing that lingers for the Phillies against the Mets that we still have yet to really see this season. Can we get it at some point over the next 3 days? I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Philly fans, you are the best sports fans in the world. You're not stupid, so why should you have to hear outlandish takes that make you shake your head?
You shouldn't. That's why Unfiltered is the show for you. Each afternoon from 2 to 6, we only bring you honest opinions and analysis.
We may not agree all the time, but what you hear is what we genuinely believe. It's not some rage bait to try to spark conversation. So make the switch to Unfiltered with me, Bill Colarulo, my man Ricky Boh, and Silvana Kelleher.
Every weekday at 2 p.m. right here on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Philly fans, you are the best sports fans in the world. You're not stupid, so why should you have to hear outlandish takes that make you shake your head?
You shouldn't. That's why Unfiltered is the show for you. Each afternoon from 2 to 6, we only bring you honest opinions and analysis.
We may not agree all the time, but what you hear is what we genuinely believe. It's not some rage bait to try to spark conversation. So make the switch to Unfiltered with me, Bill Colarulo, my man Ricky Boh, and Silvana Kelleher.
Every weekday at 2 p.m. right here on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Show 11 o'clock hour. Ray Dunn taking you through it. Sean Robin producing the show. And Robin, I just had to get on the aside there because I saw this clip circulating for part of my take of Eli Manning saying that Peyton Manning leaves him 35-minute long voice memos to prep for their Peyton and Eli show on Monday Night Football. And obviously that came back last night. And I am so against the voice memo. And I want to be very clear. It's not talk to text. It's when I actually have to press play and listen to your voice when you send me a text message. Let's just talk on the phone. No reason to do the voice memo text. I went and pulled The Office here. Vito, pro. Dylan, TJ, anti. You and I both decisively anti. I asked for some submissions here on the text line, how they feel about the voice memo text. What do we got on the text line? 610-632-0975. And I swear if someone sends a voice memo on that text line, I will destroy the text line.
No voice memos yet on the text line, but one person checking in saying he dated a girl who used the voice memo thing, but also didn't matter the situation or problem. She would be on the phone in a room full of people having a full-on conversation. It drove me nuts.
Into the phone? Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Again, I said it was not very a long it wasn't even a relationship. It wasn't a very long situation, you know? Just been a couple dates, but after a couple dates where then she starts sending me podcasts, basically, the voice memos across the text message, I was done. I couldn't do it. You know how, like, I have to take time. Also, we're on the air for 4 hours here. You know, let's not pretend like we don't text at some point throughout the day to, various people. I can't sit here during a commercial break after talking and going back and forth here and be listening to another, like a podcast as we're going. Text me. And if you want to talk to me, like, call you later. Like, don't hit me with the voice memos. It's very inconvenient. Very much anti the voice memo as a form of text message. So that texter, I understand why it drove you crazy, because it drives me crazy to get the voice memo text. We have the official Bigsby trade. At least the Eagles have now announced.
Yep, the Eagles have now announced that they have agreed to acquire running back / kick returner Tank Bigsby from the Jaguars in exchange for a 2026 fifth round pick and a 2026 sixth round pick as well. So 2 26 round picks, late picks.
Yeah, and did we get a corresponding roster move for the 53?
No corresponding roster move right now.
Okay. I'll wait for that. We'll see what they get on that. Maybe we'll get some we won't get any information from the coordinators. We'll get it at some point from the team. Probably after the coordinators speak. Bright group. But Bigsby trade, I'm not against it. I don't think I'm as fired up as everyone else. I'm hoping that he is the player that, again, averaged 5 yards a carry last year. And when you have Saquon Barkley, I guess it's nice to have someone to back him up when Shipley's out. Dylan, I think now his days are kind of limited, and it's nice to get a cheaper option, a young player like Bigsby. But giving up 2 picks when I think there are other holes in this team that will probably need to be addressed, that's the only cause for pause here for me when it comes to that deal. Now, going back to the Phillies, I opened the show, and I do not think that our YouTube chat feels the way that I feel about Dave Dombrowski, but I acknowledge that the offseason he had was subpar, was not good, did not enjoy. We complained about it pretty much from spring training through the trade deadline, and we've still complained about it since. But I am looking at what the acquisitions from the middle of July to the deadline have done for you, and especially in the lens of last night. Bader, another 3-hit night. Duran with his 12th save as a Philly, and Robertson with a 7th inning in which he strikes out 2, and Fields for his position at 40 years old. No big deal. That impresses me. And what they've done for you has put you in a stronger position going towards the postseason, and Dombrowski deserves credit for addressing the roster the way that he has. And I'm curious if people are ready to give him that credit at 610-632-0975. Does not appear to be so on our YouTube chat. Now, something we did not get last night that we're still waiting for is kind of the Schwarber moment against the Mets this year. I know we've done the MVP thing for him. Schwarber against the Mets this year, 194, 326, 278 slash line. That's a 603 OPS. He's got a home run and 2 RBI in 43 plate appearances. I know the last time I started a show talking about how underwhelming Schwarber was against the Mets, he hit 4 home runs that same night. So it's not necessarily that I have concern on the player that Schwarber is. It does seem like they pitch him in a different way than anyone else, and they have had success doing so. And I'm waiting for him to kind of find that response. He did hit one hard late in that game last night where it was, where's that one going? And it didn't end up being anything for them. But it's just something to keep an eye on with the way they've been able to pitch him. And again, we're all waiting to see where things shake out postseason-wise. It is interesting. It's just 3 games between the Giants and the Mets right now for that last wild card spot. I don't foresee the Phillies sweeping them. But the Mets with a tougher schedule down the stretch than the Giants. The Giants, could they get a little hot? Could we push them out of this thing? I don't know. We'll talk more about that in the 12 o'clock hour. But for the Schwarber thing, it's not so much a concern. It's just something of an acknowledgement. You need more from him right now against this Mets team. And, of course, you need more from your stars against the Mets, which has been a running theme going against the Mets this season. You do say that we on the text line at 610-632-0975 have a text on last night. What do we got, Sean Rodman?
Yes, we do. Norm from Mayfair checking in saying the Mets looked lifeless last night. I think they have accepted their fate. Hopefully that was the Nola we have through October as well. Harper needs to step it up. Bader now looks way better than him.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone anticipated that one at the deadline. Let's be honest with ourselves. Bader's looked really good. I'm about as big of a Harris Bader fan as we have here. He's not better than Bryce Harper. We all gotta, let's all bring ourselves back to earth on this one. Harper needs to be better. Harper needs to step it up. But let's not get crazy. Enjoyed what I saw from Nola last night. Good. 4th starter in the NLCS. Going to be tough sledding for me to change my mind on who I want the 3 to be out there in an NLDS. Coming up, we got the coordinator's presser plus Sirianni talking about his approach to Kansas City week. What I took from that. We'll get you that on the other side. I'm Ray Dunn. Take it to the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Aaron Nola flashes. I'm Sean Rodman, and this update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. Looking for an exceptional driving experience? Experience the power, precision, and intelligence of an iconic Mercedes-Benz SUV at your local Mercedes-Benz dealer today. Aaron Nola did not allow a run yesterday in 6 innings of work in the Phillies win last night. Phillies are back in action against the Mets with Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phils and Sean Manaea for the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45 tonight. Phils will be without Trey Turner again tonight as he was placed on the IL. Turner was diagnosed with a grade 1 hamstring. Here is Turner on his potential timetable to return.
As soon as possible, obviously, but more importantly for the playoffs is obviously, I think, the most important. So trying to find that, fine line of trying to get ready for that, but also not rushing it back.
Alec Bohm was also added to the IL yesterday with a shoulder injury. No update yet on Jaylen Carter's punishment as we await the league's decision. The Eagles have traded for running back Tank Bigsby for a 5th and 6th round pick heading back to the Jaguars. He's expected to help on kick returns as well. Coming up next, the Eagles coordinators are scheduled to speak to the media. This update is also brought to you by Bet365. Football is back. Get ready for the season at Bet365. When it comes to sportsbooks, Bet365 has it all. Download the app today and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the best Birds coverage. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
We got to do the old
slow start.
Julio Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed and shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down. It's kind of a weird game to assess because both offenses really started to stall after the delay of game. And nobody could be stopped, before the lightning came, and then after the lightning came, nobody could score. So, how much of that is Patulo adjustments, etc. There were a couple corner blitzes in succession that I watched where the offense just didn't really seem to have a great answer for. So I don't think it was a perfect game for Patulo. I think there are things to clean up, but I think if you look at it as a whole, the fact that it's his first game calling plays, first game working that operation with Jalen Hurts, and that they got off to that fast start, there's probably more encouraging things than not to build off of.
Speaking of encouraging, Jahad Campbell just absolutely, I thought, acquitted himself more than adequately. Playing alongside a guy like Zach Bond, I think that Vic Fangio, for me, a guy like Vic Fangio that wants to be able to run certain things, he's got 2 guys that are going to be able to run, I think, everything that he would like to run. You gave him car keys to 2 Maseratis. And I think that this is something that I think he's going to get better. He's still going to make those mistakes, and you're going to see that. But I would think that that's a guy that certainly has turned a lot of heads and has given into some of the expectations at this point early on.
An embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Right? Who are we? Who
right
are
now.
we?
What is going on? I don't even know who we are anymore. And Campbell, I agree. What a debut. He flashed every day during training camp. It wasn't always perfect. In fact, I think in pass coverage was really sometimes where it got shaky. I remember a couple times that he gave up, whether it was a wheel route against Will Shipley or a touchdown to where he blew an assignment during the joint practices against the Browns, and you're like, okay, the passing game's maybe where he needs some refinement. And then you see that play where he just carries the field with Ferguson and comes up with that PBU, and it's like linebackers really don't do that. So you recognize that you have a special talent, and to your point, Amy, it's paired with another special talent in Zach Baun, who has a similar skill set in that way. That just opens up so many things. Like, while we're talking about the restrictions in the secondary with the questions at safety and CB2 in particular, the flip side of that for Fangio is that if you have two linebackers like that, like, man, how creative can you get? And what different looks can you present an offense that they're not normally presented because they just don't have that ability at the linebacker position. So it's a new day in Philadelphia, I guess.
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from, about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we got to do the old
slow start.
Julio Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed and shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down.
Welcome back in. Midday show here on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through it. And I believe we've got the defensive coordinator of your Philadelphia Eagles stepping to the podium. Let's hear from Vic Fangio.
New adventure.
Speaking of new adventures, what's the adjustment process like when you lose Jaylen before first snap, and how challenging is that?
Well, I think the first thing that happens is, now you're down to 4 D linemen, and everybody's rep count's got to go up. So, to me, that's the biggest adjustment. Obviously, you lose the player, which is no good on multiple fronts. But it's a rep thing, too.
How do you think those guys that had to step those reps up did with the increase?
Yeah, they did fine. Jordan had a bunch of reps, probably more than he's ever had in a game. Same thing with a Jomo. BY had to play more than we thought he would. So I thought they did fine. I mean, obviously it could be better. That we didn't shut down the running game by any means. we all could have been a little better.
Then we used your linebackers on the edge. With Jahad Campbell in that role most of the game, or all the game, why was Jahad Campbell your best suited for that role and not Bond?
Well, it just, in those particular times we do it, Zach actually would do a good job up there, and he was our preferred guy last year when we had N'Kobe to be up there. Then when N'Kobe got hurt in the playoffs, Bond stayed in the middle and Orrin went up. We just, Bond's more capable of handling the middle part of that job. Is really.
Jaylen this week? There's no word from the week yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
I had asked you last week about the nastiness that he brings, and we used.
Yeah, what did I tell you? What did I tell you?
Yes.
Okay, so I ended up being right on that. You were wrong.
You meant? What happened with him ultimately? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, not to that nth degree, but yeah, that type of stuff.
But I meant in terms of like him being focused.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got to be focused at the job at hand, and all extracurricular stuff needs to not have any importance to you.
How are you approaching this week with the uncertainty of whether he'll be available to you or not?
I think we'll know something soon enough.
With the Dory, struggled a little bit, started to make some plays. What did you see from him overall?
He just got to make sure he's a master technician and not let his technique falter. They have good receivers, and if you don't go about your job the right way from a technique standpoint, those good receivers become impossible to cover.
Gary Smith fit in here, and over the course of his career, how much have you tracked him?
I haven't really tracked him that much. I knew he was a good player, and I don't know how he'll fit in yet. Haven't seen him on the field. Don't know what kind of shape he's in. Don't know how quickly he'll pick up what we're doing, so that's a TBD right there.
Davis, we talked all offseason about his conditioning. Did you see the benefits of that in those expanded snaps?
Very much so. I don't think he could have played that amount of snaps as well as he did previously.
Plan to have Adoree start this week against Kansas City?
Right now, yes.
What's the teaching point that Jordan was in on a sack? Davis was in on that sack, but he couldn't finish that one. What's the teaching point there?
Yeah, it's hard. He's a very hard guy to tackle, number one. He's a big, strong guy. And when you're coming off a block like he was, makes it even more difficult. We just need to have more guys around him so when he's escaping, there's other people there to clean it up.
Would Cooper DeJean be someone you'd consider like full-time on the outside? I know you said once before, that it depends on if you have someone to replace him at nickel and everything. I mean, is that kind of still the issue?
Preferably, we want to keep him at nickel.
I'm curious if you saw the Chiefs-Chargers game where Mahomes was running towards the sideline. The corner kind of conceded, okay, he can go out of bounds, and then Mahomes ran him over. And then other times you see Mahomes near the sideline, gets hit very lightly, acts like he got shot. So what's the teaching point there in terms of him riding the sideline like that?
Yeah, you have to always be aware when you're near the sideline for all those points you just brought up. One, the quarterback flopping, going out of bounds. Two, the quarterback lowering his shoulder and try and get the last piece of business in there. So you got to play with good bent knees and be ready for anything that happens. But Mahomes is the ultimate competitor, and it doesn't surprise me to see him do that.
How did you land on the way you handled that rotation?
Well, the plan was that Sidney would play the base snaps, and Makuba would play the nickel snaps. And we thought going into the game we would be in base more than we were, but they chose to pretty much make it a 3 wide receiver game. So the reps got distorted that way.
Do you think that Drew handled that extra workload at safety?
He did okay. He had a couple major busts that hurt us and could have hurt us even more. So looking for him to improve this next week.
A couple of years now where
the Chiefs have kind of nickel and dime their way down the field. A number of big plays they've had. They produce lately over the last year or so, 2 years, isn't what it once was under Mahomes. How does that factor into preparation? Even though you have a quarterback who's that dynamic.
I think they will continue to throw it deep some. I think they've made it a major emphasis this year. And they did it in their first game. They did it in the preseason. So I expect to see more of that.
Jacorian played a handful of snaps when Adoree was getting checked for the concussion. Did you see enough from him to draw any conclusions?
Not really. I'm not sure the exact number of it. 7, I knew you would know. Yeah, that's not enough.
Byron played a little bit more than he expected because of Jaylen. How did he hold up?
He did good. He gave us some energy, ran to the ball hard, almost had that pick on the deflection, was involved with the caused fumble. I don't know who they ended up giving that to, Campbell, but if it was a sack, I think they would have halved it. So he did fine. And hopefully that's something for him to build on.
The volume of flags that you drew, was that the byproduct of the emphasis from officials, or do you think you guys need to clean yourselves up?
We need to clean ourselves up.
Jaylen Campbell and Saquon, both of them made some pretty big plays in coverage, it seemed like. What did you learn about that on and on-field in regular season? What can having two guys like that unlock in terms of what you can do defensively?
Yeah, they both did a good job. They each had one. Coincidentally, they both had one in practice during the week last week and didn't cover it as well as they did in the game, which is why practice is important.
We'll do a couple more. You've been around Jaylen Carter for over a year now. Behind the scenes, how have you seen him maybe step into a leadership role, or just how have you seen him maybe mature over the past year since you've been around?
Well, to be considered a leader, actions speak louder than words, and he's got to lead through his actions.
Do you speak to him, or do you leave that to Nick and Howie?
Pretty much Nick on that, when it gets to that extreme. Pretty much that.
How do you feel about it right now?
We'll see. Like we said earlier, don't really know what Za'Darius brings or doesn't bring. Uche got in there a few snaps the other night and did some good stuff. So we're feeling better about it.
Size, 6'4", 270, is that something that you like where you can shift inside and work there too?
Yeah, it's possible.
Thanks, sir.
All right, there was Vic Fangio. A couple of things. We'll start towards the end there. Have you seen Jaylen Carter grow as a leader? He has to lead through his actions. Not surprising, given the week we're coming off of with Jaylen Carter, that he is not really there effusive in his praise. There was another line of questioning earlier in that press conference where they harkened back to a conversation last week. To give a little context to the back and forth, I believe it was McClain, because last week he asked, with Jaylen Carter, beyond the ability that he has athletically, does he have to play with a certain nastiness to get to the level that you guys want him to be? And Fangio was like, I don't know if nastiness is the right word. What's the best way to describe that? McClain followed up. I just think that he has to play with the right mindset to reach his potential or come close to reaching his potential. He's just got to be on top of the details, play with great effort, and be focused. And then there was another back and forth today where Fangio was saying that he was right last week when talking about that because he didn't necessarily want to see, I guess, the nastiness of one Jaylen Carter. And you obviously saw the way that game started. The focus dropped, and his attention there to what was going on ultimately led to him being out of that football game. So, certainly an interesting way to address things. I'll go back to this. He's got to lead through his actions. I don't think anyone in Philadelphia disagrees with that when it comes to Jaylen Carter, but Vic Fangio, always going to be pointed, said that about him. It has to be a man-in-the-mirror type moment for Jaylen Carter after this week. With regards to the suspension, he believes that we're going to know soon enough for him to be able to put a game plan together, but he hasn't heard anything on Jaylen Carter. And interestingly enough, because we talk so much about the discipline and what is instilled in this team from Vic Fangio, Nick Sirianni is the one that talks to him. And talks to him being Carter. Is that not at all odd to you that Vic's is that more of a deflection from Vic Fangio, like don't ask me what we talked about because I'm not going to talk about what I talked about with him, or is that the truth that he really just leaves everything up to Sirianni to address with his team and he is just strictly focused on coaching?
I think it's actually partially truth in there because has Fangio ever really lied to us or the media at all? He's always kind of tells you how it is, and I think he is telling the truth on that he leaves that towards Nick in that regard.
I don't know. Like, you really think that after last week he had nothing to say to Jaylen Carter?
I'm sure
everything you know that about Vic Fangio, he had nothing to say to him.
It's more so of, hey, we got to be better, like we talked about this kind of thing, but Nick Sirianni's the one that has the longer conversation about it. Yeah, maybe it's a sentence or two, but I think the most of the talking to is from the head coach.
I guess.
Because when you get too many voices telling you, hey, you messed up, that's when you start to lose people in that regard.
I don't know, man. You mess up like that, I think it's okay if 2 of your coaches are the ones that talk to you about it. 3. We'll give the position coach 2. Like, I'm surprised. I'm surprised about that. And I appreciate Fangio not giving us the PR answer there of like, well, yeah, you don't see every day. Because, let's face it, Sirianni, other coaches that have been here before, the way that question was worded was basically like, hey, here's a chance to hype up Jaylen Carter. Go ahead, do it. Do it. Do it. Tell us he's a leader. The way that was phrased was to give them an opportunity to hey, go right ahead. And I appreciate Fangio not taking that layup. Not being like, yeah, I've absolutely seen it. That's something that happens here. So, good on Vic Fangio there, but throughout the rest of the presser, outside of Jaylen Carter, outside of what he had to say with regards to Carter, Adoree Jackson needs to be better technique-wise. I think anyone that watched that game agrees with that. Plan is to start him versus Kansas City. Jordan Davis, you saw some of the conditioning. Slim JD, you saw some of the conditioning show in that game. Needed to finish that 1 sack. Overall, he felt like the rep count obviously goes up for those guys in the interior of the defensive line, but they did fine. They could be better. Mentioned that pretty much everyone could be better. Mentioned the running game is a big point of emphasis for them. Prefers Cooper DeJean in the slot. So that takes away one of the conversations we had earlier. I don't know if it was yesterday with Mike Hilton, that maybe that's not going to be what happens. And always be aware when it comes to Patrick Mahomes and talking about the sideline antics, depending on what he might do. So that's some of the things that came out of the Vic Fangio presser. We're going to step aside. We come back. We'll have Patulo for you. And Mike Clay stepped up there. And to his credit, his special teams unit stepped up to the point where we don't have to air the special teams coordinator presser to break down everything they're doing there to try and clean things up. I thought they did a good job against Kevontae Turpin last week, which was one of my key points going into that game. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the midday show. Coming up, you'll hear from the offensive coordinator, Kevin Patulo, right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Eagles quarterback Jaylen.
Really want to just find out from Howie. Why didn't you bring back Rodgers? Why didn't you bring back Isaiah Rodgers? You could have avoided this big void in your defense by simply re-signing Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, but
I
there's
said this to
something
you
here.
2 months ago.
You did.
I was right all along.
Yeah, you were. The whole point to this is you guys were both right about the situation. They should have kept Rodgers. There's no doubt about it. By the way, they didn't. Move on. Get off of that wagon.
You're right. You
I mean, you
move on.
both got to get off of that wagon.
You're correct.
Well,
I'm coming at you now too.
I don't keep bringing it up there, Skippy.
Skippy.
I love this.
No, you're right though. We got to move on. It's just frustrating when you're watching these games because
I know, but you
every offensive coordinator is going to attack the opposite cornerback to Quinyon Mitchell.
You got to think about how are they going to fix it now? Is Adoree Jackson the answer? I don't think so. After what I saw last night, I would say no.
You see how that skews people's opinions of things. You only read the headline. Oh, AJ must be upset. He didn't sound upset. He's going to do what he needs to do to win.
He sounded like he understood what happened.
Exactly. I was there. He wasn't upset. It's the way that it goes. He mentioned I can't control when the ball comes to me, but he talked about the effort and being ready when his number's called, and he always is ready when his number's called. So you see the effort and the toughness manifest in different ways. Sometimes you can't really – he finds ways to affect the game without always having to be ball-centric. But there's going to be games where he's going to get his, and that it could be 8 or 10 receptions in a game.
Really want to just find out from Howie. Why didn't you bring back Rodgers? Why didn't you bring back Isaiah Rodgers? You could have avoided this big void in your defense by simply re-signing Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, but I said this to you 2 months ago.
You did.
I was right all along.
Yeah, you were. The whole point to this is you guys were both right about the situation. They should have kept Rodgers. There's no doubt about it. By the way, they didn't. Move on. Get off of that wagon.
You're right. You got to move on.
You both got to get off of that wagon.
You're correct.
I'm coming at you now, too.
I don't keep...
Welcome back in. Midday show here on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the show. I got to say something about it. I love, much respect for all the folks we got here. Absolute savages. There was an email that went out. I'm sorry, not even 15 minutes ago. Was it 15? About 20 minutes ago. But about 15 minutes from when I walked into that less than 20 minutes, when I walked in that kitchen, that there was food in the kitchen. I got there, nothing.
Already gone.
Just ravaged. Gone. Taken care of. Luckily,
everybody forget their lunch?
Sprouts. I mean, I don't pack lunch, so I can't really blame anyone for saying, oh, they forgot the lunch. You pack lunch?
Yeah, but I left it in the car, so probably not going to eat that now.
That's brutal. That's a tough look for you. You really pack your lunch?
Yeah, depending on especially what I have going on after this.
Interesting. You got work after this?
No.
Oh, okay. So you just packed your lunch just to be cool?
Yeah. Well, yesterday I packed it because I had work after this and then forgot it at home. So
got it. So you're really batting 1,000 this week.
I'm
Good
doing,
work by
doing
you,
real
Rob.
well right now.
We got Patulo's presser coming up in a couple of minutes here. But, yeah, it's just crazy how much people are just savages right now. There's a food email that goes out. It's like a race to get to the kitchen. And luckily I was able to secure something. But there's just nothing left over there. I want to also mention, coming up, 12:25, we'll have Todd Zeleki talking about the Phillies, obviously the big win last night. 1:25, Jeff Mosher talking about just everything the Eagles are doing right now. A couple moves, bringing in Zadarius Smith, bringing in Tank Bigsby via trade with Jacksonville. Also, I saw this comment. What team did he come from, Sean Rodman?
The Lions.
No, Bigsby.
Oh, Bigsby. I'm sorry. The Jaguars.
You're a Jaguars guy. You and Tom Alvord. Jaguars.
How am I? Oh,
Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a Philly thing.
Yeah.
A Philly accent thing. We're the Jaguars. Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to question how I say it every time now.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'll be
Probably
listening
going to trip
intently.
me up every time.
Jaguars. Jaguars, it has to be a Philly thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I think it's
usually our
part of the
accent that messes things up. But we were just listening to Vic Fangio address the media, and I can't get over this. He was handed pretty much a silver platter of like PR, save us from Jaylen Carter conversation. He's like, yeah, he's got to lead through his actions. He really wanted to drive home the point of, yeah, he's not just going to get out of this one because he is who he is. I love that from Vic Fangio. I do. Hold that man to the standard that he's got to be better. Because he was given a gift of a question. How's he grown as a leader since you got here? You could name a whole bunch of different things that, whether you believe them or not, would play beautifully to the media. Instead, Vic Fangio says he's got to lead through his actions. And then I do find it odd that he just says Nick talks to him. And I'm going to lean on the side that he's just lying to us so he doesn't get the follow-up question of what did that conversation look like between you and Jaylen Carter, and then he has to sidestep that. I'm going to lean to him knowing that follow-up question would come and him not wanting to answer it. Because I can't imagine there wasn't a conversation. Knowing what we know about Vic Fangio, I can't imagine there wasn't a conversation between him and Jaylen Carter about this. I'm sorry. I cannot imagine that he was like, yeah, Nick's office is down the hall. Go talk to him. I'm busy. Or, you get in the locker room at halftime. It's good to see you. I think Nick wants to talk to you after the game. Yeah, you go see Nick. I'm all right. I don't know. Is it like the parent that's so disappointed in you that they don't even go talk to your mom? I can't even look at you right now. I'll go talk to your father. I can't talk to you. I can't deal with you right now. Like, would that be the case with him? I just can't imagine him not wanting to at least address the situation, given what we know about Vic Fangio.
I still think that it's got to be Sirianni that handled it for the most part. If Fangio did say anything, it was one or two sentences, like, you have to be better. We talked about this in the offseason, training camp, whenever it might have been. But for the most part, I think Nick Sirianni is the one that talks to him because it's like that parent situation, like you said. If they go to, hey, go talk to your mom, go talk to your dad, whoever is the higher up, the one that is basically gets mad the most or the quickest, that you don't, when you're in trouble, you don't want to hear from, that's Nick Sirianni in this case. And I still think Nick Sirianni is the one that leads that. Did he talk to other coaches and GMs and everything? Sure.
I'm sure he talked to Clint Hurt. I'm sure there was a significant conversation between the two of them. But I think in this situation, like, you have to go through that levels of conversation. Like, if we screw up here, I'm not just, like, I'm probably going to talk to a number of different levels of leadership here. Like, it's not just going to be, hey, yeah, one meeting. You screw up here, you're probably going to be talking to, hey, all right, someone you directly report to, someone who they report to, someone who they report to. I think that would be that line. I feel like for a football team, not too different. Yeah, like, you screw up to that level, yeah, you talk to Clint Hurt. And then you talk to Vic Fangio. You talk to Sirianni. I can imagine, given how involved Howie Roseman is, he probably didn't just hide. I'm sure he went in there and, hey, man, we've been talking about how much money you're going to get, right? Like, maybe we haven't been talking about it, but you've been hearing how much money you're probably going to get. We need you to be better to get that. I can't imagine Vic Fangio is just like, I'm disappointed. All right, go down the hall.
Well, Fangio also is the one where you kind of look at him and you know that he's disappointed. He doesn't necessarily even have to say anything at the same point.
That's fair. So outside of that, the Adoree Jackson needs better technique. That was Captain Obvious quote of the day. Plan is to start him in Kansas City. I would imagine they give him the first month, right? I would think that that's where this goes. Unless it's, like, disastrously bad over the next couple of weeks. Like, all right, week 1, growing pains, got to grow into this system. Bennett still has to learn this system. Maybe by the time we get to the Bucs game, I would think that we're probably in this for the first couple of games, if I had to guess. Not wanting to move DeJean outside seems to be a strong sticking point there for them, because he mentioned that again today. And this is something we're going to talk about later on in the week as we get closer to like fully locking in on what's going on with Kansas City. I am very intrigued to see the way they handle Mahomes getting loose and running towards the sideline. Just because he's done it a million times. Calarulo complains about it every time he does it. I know Calarulo was yelling at his television or his computer, wherever he was watching the game on Friday night, when he tried to, crush the defender that was trying to, meet him at the sideline, because usually that's, if you hit him out of bounds, you're going to end up getting the flag. That time, he delivers the hit stick, and he's obviously not going to get called for anything. I'm interested to see the way they handle him along the sidelines. And also, you mentioned the safety rotation they had. Sidney Brown at base, Makuba at nickel as they try and rotate through here. I'll be interested to see how long that lasts going forward. We said we have a text at 610-632-0975 on the Carter conversation.
Yes, this person checking in, no name, saying, I 100% believe that the defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator are to focus on the task at hand, and Nick is responsible for all the extra stuff so the coaches can focus on their task.
Yeah, but their task is impacted by Carter. Like, his task in that game was impacted by Carter. I don't think it's a 30-minute, sit down. I'm going to lecture you on the ways of the world. But I think he said Nick handles that because he knows that he'd be asked that follow-up. And I imagine that Nick, again, for all he does culture-wise, was probably the heavier hand in that conversation and the more long-winded one, because we know that to be a fact in that. All right, let's catch up a little bit on the text line here. I know we've been talking Birds. We're waiting Patulo's presser. What else do we got on the text line when it comes to the Eagles?
All right, when it comes to the Eagles, one person saying, I like the Tank Bigsby trade. He adds another running back to that room and another kick returner as well.
Yeah, again, their 53-man roster got better. I don't want to undersell it to that point. I think they are, especially without Shipley, you need the kick returner. I just look at what you gave up for the skills kit you got, and it's like, all right, he's going to be your third running back by the time we get back here. Because even if you think he's better than Shipley as a runner, he has not shown you much at this level in terms of a pass catcher or a pass blocker, which really limits his upside. And, oh, by the way, he's playing behind Saquon Barkley. So your 53-man roster got better in the short term, especially with the kick returns. I know Reed from North Philly called us up earlier, was like, hey, man, don't forget, 76% of kicks this week were returned. That's a big deal. I get that, but at the same time, I'm sitting here like, all right, good job by Howie. Howie continues to work the phones. Howie's phone bill is about 3 times higher than anyone else in the NFL right now, because was it 6 trades now since they got to camp? I mean, they are consistently adding on to the 53. They are going to be the team in their minds that goes back to back. They and obviously that's the way you should approach every season. But there is no room for them having anyone on the 53 that they don't believe belongs there right now. As you're tuned in to WPEN, WPN HD1, Burlington, Philadelphia, Beasley BD Group Station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibility. What else we got?
Going back to the Carter versus Lamar suspension thing, Chris and Philly saying, I think there is a difference between Carter and Lamar. Lamar was basically defending himself and team from an idiot fan. Carter spit on another player. Even if it was a misunderstanding, I still think there is a greater chance Carter would get suspended over Lamar.
I just think that there was nothing done in-game with Lamar Jackson, and we've talked so much about Jaylen Carter, them wanting to set a precedent. I think they want a player to think twice before they lay hands on a fan. I think in the, world of what Lamar Jackson did, you can't go after a fan, but that fan also can't go after you. And, that fan is deservedly banned. But I think they're also going to look at this as, okay, how do we line up what happened there for our best interest going forward? And I think that's why you could talk yourself into them going disciplinary. I don't think either should be suspended. I don't think Lamar Jackson will be, because let's all be honest with ourselves. Are they really going to do that with Lamar Jackson this early season? I mean, at all. He's one of your star players. They're not going to do that to him. And Jaylen Carter is one of your star players, but they have the opportunity to make an example out of what they want sportsmanship-wise, and they could. I can't believe that we haven't gotten this yet. It was like, oh, yeah, it'll happen Monday. It's now Tuesday afternoon. We just crossed over into the 12 o'clock hour. How in the world do we not have that yet? How do we not yet have the information on this one?
I still think part of it is due to the Lamar pushing a fan, and part of it might actually be what we talked about yesterday, the University of Florida player. I know how you were frustrated yesterday about that if that impacts Carter's suspension or a potential suspension, which I do think it does impact it a little bit based on how the NFL wants to view their brand. But I think that has to do with why we're still waiting.
If that kid is so dumb that he watched Jaylen Carter get ejected from a game without playing a snap and was like, yeah, that's a good idea for me to do in my game, that's that kid's problem. That's not the Eagles' problem, and that's not Jaylen Carter's problem. And I'm calling him a kid. He's 20. I feel like the mic guy. I'm a man. He's a kid in nature. Like, again, age-wise, he's young. He's 20 years old. But you watch that game, you're able to process what happened in that game. You're 20 years old. Like, you're able to vote, man. Like, you're able to make decisions for yourself. You've been able to drive for how long at this point? You're able to make decisions. Did you watch Thursday night? Watch Jaylen Carter spit on the guy and was like, yeah, that's pretty tough, man. That'll be the thing that shows them. And not process that he got ejected and hurt his team. If you don't process that, like I don't know where your maturity level's at. I don't think that's Jaylen Carter's fault. But you're gonna continue to drive me crazy with that one. We're still waiting Patulo to step to the podium. I want to just bring something up real quick because I saw the name mentioned in our YouTube chat, and it's not at all has to do with football. It had to do with the 76ers. Did you see the name floating around on the old Bird app?
I believe if it's the same one that you're referring that I saw, yes, I believe it's the same one.
Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, there was interest, according to Jake Fisher, at least overtures, between Ben Simmons and the 76ers after he was bought out by the Nets. We had the whole, whoa, would you do it, like, kind of tongue-in-cheek conversation. Please. No? I could understand why he would want to. He goes back to a city that he called home. I'm pretty sure he's still got a place around here, so that would make sense. I don't know if that's changed since I hadn't last any update on that. I'm pretty sure he's got a place still around here. Like, he was called this place home before, knows this place. It's funny because, a tall defensive-oriented guard wouldn't be the worst thing for this team. And he could, if he was able to repair things with a bead, he could try and right things here. So from his perspective, maybe it doesn't seem like the craziest idea. Please don't do this. I'm begging you. Please, whatever you're doing, don't do this one. Do not bring him in here. I could not do it. Please. I would not be able to survive it with Ben Simmons. I saw that story, that like little thing floating out on the timeline yesterday, and I was like, please, don't let me have to deal with this again. So that was just my mention of that because I saw the Ben Simmons thing, and I was like, don't start this, please. All right. We're going to do the thing that'll bring a coordinator to the podium the quickest, and we're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll get you Kevin Patulo. Coming up at 12:25, we got Todd Zeleki of MLB.com. Join us to talk about everything going on with the Phillies. 125 today, Jeff Mosher. Still plenty to come. I'm Ray Dunn. Take you through the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Philly fans, you are the best sports fans in the world. You're not stupid, so why should you have to hear outlandish takes that make you shake your head?
You shouldn't. That's why Unfiltered is the show for you. Each afternoon from 2 to 6, we only bring you honest opinions and analysis.
We may not agree all the time, but what you hear is what we genuinely believe. It's not some rage bait to try to spark conversation. So make the switch to Unfiltered with me, Bill Colarulo, my man Ricky Bo, and Silvana Keller.
Every weekday at 2 p.m. right here on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Philly fans, you are the best sports fans in the world. You're not stupid, so why should you have to hear outlandish takes that make you shake your head?
You shouldn't. That's why Unfiltered is the show for you. Each afternoon from 2 to...
That's right, Midday Show, 12 o'clock hour here on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Ray Dunn taking you through the Midday Show, and we've got offensive coordinator Kevin Patulo addressing the media. Let's take you to his presser.
With getting the ball, you have one completion, completed past 10 yards. With that, do you want Jaylen to force more things down the field, or is it all about just letting the game come to him? How do you kind of balance all that?
Yeah, I think really when you game plan and stuff like that, it's all about just kind of seeing what's happening and letting him play and be efficient. Each game is different, going into it. You think you're going to get one thing, you may get another. So in game, you got to make those adjustments and kind of just let it play out. So you don't ever want to stress anything like that too much, because then you can create bad habits, obviously. And we were pretty efficient for the most part, and he did a good job. So, you really just want to look at how do we stay on track and advance the ball and do what we need to. So as long as that continues, that's kind of the goal. But obviously, if you do get an opportunity, we'd love to take that.
Ran too much into heavy boxes.
It's funny, not really. When you look at it situationally, we went back and did some self-scouting stuff. It wasn't that we ran into heavy boxes. I think there was just at times, situationally, there was a run called. And when you look at the coverage that we were given, they were kind of messing around with some stuff that appeared to be a little bit of a heavy box. And we didn't always block it properly, so we just got to continue to work on that. But really, when you look at just kind of the calls with how the flow of the game was going, for the most part, obviously in the first couple drives, we had a good flow as far as the run, pass, mix, and kind of continued with that. So I wouldn't say, we definitely knew exactly every play what was going to happen. So it was a good mix for the most part.
Targets for AJ.
When you game plan, obviously the number one guy is going to be AJ, Devontae, Dallas. Those guys are going to get in the pass game. They're going to get the targets. And so going in, we had a fair share of things that were going to go him as the primary. And sometimes games play out like that, and that's kind of how it was. And kind of to the previous question, we don't ever want to force it. So if it's one of those games where you're trying not to force it and you're being productive and you're staying on track, the guys understand. He played his butt off too. Like he knew kind of what was going on and just the way it was. And then we were moving the ball and being efficient. So I think when you look at it, you always put that in mind when you start the game plan, like this week. Hey, he's the guy. This is where we want to go with it. And once the game starts to unfold, you just kind of play it accordingly.
You weren't the OC last year. Wearing the hat, the South Florida hat. But in the Super Bowl, this team did a good job shutting Saquon down.
Do you learn anything from that? Do you watch that, study that at all? I know it's a different team. But
Yeah, that's been a big part of this week and just kind of preparing for them again. Spags does such a great job just overall throughout the years of taking away, kind of what you do best. So we've had to be creative, and I think we're on a right track right now to be creative with the game plan to kind of get that going.
The efficiency part of it, what's the balancing act of when you talk about AJ, sort of manufacturing a touch versus we're being efficient, so maybe we don't need to do that?
When you're balancing it, it's really like, what's the opportunity, or is it a first down thing or a second down thing? Is there a down that presents itself where we can get that done? So, if we're behind the chains, then all of a sudden you're going to want the full field reads potentially. If you're staying in phase and you get a nice first down run and you're manageable on second down, maybe you can afford to take that opportunity to say, hey, we're going all in on this thing. So I think it's finding that down if you get one to kind of take an opportunity to get, manufacture something like that if you can.
First game like for you overall? What was biggest takeaway?
Really, the whole staff, I thought the communication from all the coaches on the sideline, the box was great. The communication with the players and all of us was really, really good. Jaylen was good in the sideline. The O-line was good. Saquon, all the guys were really good. The receivers were into it. They understood kind of what they were seeing and what they were feeling coverage-wise. So the biggest takeaway, I think, was the communication was good, which is what we're going to need going forward, just the in-game adjustments, being able to kind of get through all that. So overall, I think it was the right step in the right direction. And obviously, there's always things that you want to continue to look at, like, hey, how do we get better? And I think we did a good job of just talking about that as a staff and with the players on a Monday after we watched the film.
Talked about being at times a little more proactive was his takeaway. What is that? How do you interpret that?
I think he's just more comfortable. When you look at it, just another year kind of going against defenses and seeing things and understanding what he's seeing and just being able to communicate it with guys. And like I said, I've been around him for a while. We've talked about that before. So I think that just kind of felt more natural to him, and he did a good job. He's a dynamic player, right? And he's going to add depth to our roster. And I think he can make some plays for us offensively, and we can use him in different ways.
The advanced super packages, are they out now, or can Granson fill that role?
He can fill that role, and Cam Latu can fill that role as well. So we have guys that can definitely fill that role, and I think it's something we can continue to do.
Vince said, percentage-wise, used it more than in any game last year. Did you expect that going in to the Cowboys game, and what do you like about what that package offers?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I expected it. It just kind of unfolded itself. We had the one explosive to Saquon, on the perimeter, and it just kind of was something that appeared kind of throughout the game. And then late in the game, we used it in a few sets too, just kind of in that 4-minute mode. So it really wasn't something like in the middle of the game that we were doing. It just kind of happened naturally.
Both had to play 11 snaps, I think. First, is there any concern over Landon's back? And secondly, how have you been here 5 years? How have you seen Toth kind of develop to be that first guy up at that?
He does a great job of just being available and ready for anything, right? Whether it's center, whether it's guard, if we ever need a tackle, he can do it all. And so that's the biggest thing, right? So a guy that can step in there mentally and know what to do, you feel comfortable with. And so, I know Landon's going to be ready if he's ready, and we'll see where that's at. But, Brett does a good job of just feeling like, hey, coach, whatever you need, I got you. I can play all these positions. And that's very important in game when you have to sometimes juggle guys with injuries.
Back to Saquon, you mentioned, obviously how you guys might need to get creative with that going into Kansas City, but it's like 2 games in a row now where he's been held to 3 yards per carry, going back to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much do you go over stuff with Saquon? How much do you guys kind of collaborate on that as far as finding ways to be creative and get him in space more and all that?
Yeah, I think just as far as him and I, our communication, each week him and I talk a lot about, hey, here's the plan, here's what we're looking to do, here's some new wrinkles, and just see what he sees too, right? Because he watches a lot of film, and I think that's been really good. Even last week, even during in-game, he was really good to talk to on the sideline. Here's what I'm feeling and seeing. And even in the past, him and I have had a pretty good dialogue, in games with finding key runs when we need them. In the playoffs, that appeared itself a few times where him and I had some good dialogue with and the O-line. And so when you're putting in stuff early in the week, it's easy to talk through that. And as the week goes, they get a feel for kind of what you're looking at. And as far as when you put plans together, like Jason Michael and Stout and Eric Dickerson and Greg and all those guys do a really good job of working through all the runs with myself and really figuring out, hey, here's what could be an issue, here's what we need to figure out, this is good versus this, and vice versa. And then so when you're able to explain it to the players, they get a better feel for the plan and what's going to happen, and then the adjustments off of it in game.
About the blitz pickup from the running back position.
I think that the first game, some of that appeared to be like, hey, this is the first time we've seen this, we need to just work through it. And I think that's kind of been, if you look around the league, I watched a lot of football, obviously, this weekend. I think that was a constant. If you look around the league, just people diagnosing different things on defense, right? Because it's the first time you've gone against a defense and the speed and what you see things and pick it up. So obviously we did some good, and there's some things we want to correct. But overall, I think it's just going to be a work in progress. Like, that's one of the things when you don't, when you're going against your defense in camp like we did for so long, you see something new for the first time, it gives you a little bit of like, oh, that's what that looks like and feels like again. You got to get back in the swing of it a little bit.
How tough is it to get back in a rhythm after an hour delay like you had?
And that was interesting. It was longer. We were joking a little bit like after the game. It was longer than the Super Bowl halftime, and there was no structure to it because it was like, well, how long is this? How long do we have? So it was a little bit different. And we had so much momentum at that point too. That's where that was a little bit frustrating. We just got the turnover. We were, ready to go. The first 3 drives went up and down the field. Then we got the next field goal and the next drive. So we felt like we were in a good rhythm. And then you sit for a while and wait and wait. So that's where it was a little challenging. They kind of just sit and wait and kind of get back in the flow of things. And then, it felt funny after that. I think the Cowboys experienced the same thing a little bit offensively where the defensive guys just came out and played.
How do you view the Jaylen scrambles when you look back at them? Because they're obviously successful plays, but it doesn't happen within the structure of what you planned.
Well, sometimes, right, a scramble happens for a couple reasons, right? Sometimes it's protection, sometimes it's a read's taken away, or sometimes, as a quarterback, and every quarterback is different, but if he feels a void in there and he can go get it, go get it. First downs are first downs. So you really don't have to worry too much about it, and he's really good about knowing when to scramble. And sometimes, it's just the route didn't match up or something happened and it broke down. He just has a sense of like, hey, this is my chance to get out. It's a 4-man rush. I'm out and I get a first down. So I think really each one you look at independently, like, was it a mistake we made on offense? Was it a scheme thing? Was it a route breakdown? Did somebody have a missed assignment? What caused it? And, sometimes guys are open, but you take off and you get a first down. It's all good. First downs are first downs.
So good at avoiding splatter hits.
It's funny is he does a good job of, I think, of just feeling and knowing where defenders are. If you watch him in space, he's really, really unique and able to make the first guy miss and kind of get his body in a position to know where the next guy is. And that's unique. I've been around some other guys, they get hit hard when they're running, and he does a really, really good job of just kind of being in space and making the first guy miss and knowing what's around him. He's got a very different feel, almost a running back-ish, feel. And there's been some skill guys I've been around too that have a really good feel for not getting hit too. And so, he's one of those guys that definitely has that gift.
Where does that awareness come from?
I think some guys just have a sense of where people are at all times, right? So if I'm running at you and I know somebody's coming from the side, I make the first guy miss, he's coming from the side, and then I know I'm going to get hit this way. So I think some guys, just like vision on a basketball court, it's a similar thing. You just have a feel for where defenders are and they know where at. You look at Saquon, for example, in space. Some of the moves he made the other night were dynamic, right? Some guys just have that natural ability.
Each of the last few years about using the early part of the season to find the offensive identity. How much have the last couple of days, you mentioned the self-scouting process, helped in kind of figuring out what the offense can lean on?
Well, I think, it's just game one, so we just kind of have to wait it out a little bit. But I think overall, just getting back in the swing of things and getting the feel for game planning and watching tape and an opponent and what they do and being familiar with it and in-game adjustments, that's the biggest thing I think that you have to be conscious of as a player, kind of feeling the season out and feeling what the identity of the offense is. And then from there, I think you just feel comfortable with suggestions and answers and, okay, they're doing this, we're going to get to this. So I think it does take some time a little bit.
All right, Kevin Patulo, the offensive coordinator of the Birds, meeting with the media. We're going to react to that coming up in the bottom of the hour. Up next, it's Todd Zeleki of MLB.com who covers the Phillies. Break it down. Trey Turner going to the injured list. Alec Bohm going to the injured list. Aaron Nola's good start, and the Phillies winning against the Mets. Finally, beat the Mets. They finally stepped up and beat the Mets. I'm Ray Dunn. Take you to the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Well, Dory Jackson will start this weekend. I'm Sean Rodman, and Vic Fangio told the media that Jackson will start on the outside as he still prefers DeJean in the slot. The Eagles also have traded for running back Tank Bigsby for a 5th and 6th rounder to the Jaguars. He's expected to help with kick returns as well. And no update on any Jaylen Carter punishment quite yet as we await the league's decision there. Phillies are back in action against the Mets tonight with Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phils and Sean Manaea for the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45. Phillies will be without Trey Turner again tonight. He was placed on the IL. Turner was diagnosed with a grade 1 strain on his hamstring, and they hope to have him back for the playoffs. Alec Bohm was also added to the IL yesterday with a shoulder injury. MLB.com's Todd Zeleki will join us next on the State of the Phillies. This update is brought to you by Bet365. Football is back. Get ready for the season at Bet365. When it comes to sportsbooks, Bet365 has it all. Download the app today and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the best birds coverage, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
How much do you think they're going to try to make a little bit more of a concerted effort just to get those guys more involved?
I remember a couple years ago in the opener against Detroit, I think it was, where Devontae Smith, he didn't come away with any catches.
Yeah, the single catch, I remember that. And then they went crazy, remember that?
Week, they just fed him. They just fed him right after that.
Right,
I think that you're going to see some of that. I just got done rewatching that game from last night, and there were opportunities for Brown here and there, but I think that the Dallas did a nice job of, and Sirianni spoke to this after the game, of matching some of the routes. And so there was a couple times where you would have, like there's one instance I'm thinking of in particular where A.J. Brown's running a curl route, and the safety drops at his depth to take that away, and then Hurts ends up hitting Dallas Goedert underneath, and there was just a lot of that sort of going on. The passing game, maybe it wasn't as spectacular as you would hope. I think that Hurts's comments post-game were kind of telling when I asked him about how the operation went with him and Kevin Patulo, and he was mostly glowing about it, but said, sometimes you don't want to be reactive. You want to be a little bit more proactive. So I think it's, maybe getting a little bit more on the aggressive side from a passing standpoint might be something that they talk about moving forward. A.J. Brown, obviously, a really big part of that. So I think before long, we'll see Brown get going.
Yeah. Going forward, how much do you think they're going to let Adoree Jackson kind of figure this out on the field, given the fact they play the Chiefs?
It really kind of speaks to what we did see during the course of the summer training camp, and that was that the CB2 just never got an answer. And as much as they wanted to paint it up, it just never happened. I mean, they wanted the job to go to Kelee Ringo, I think, and he didn't grab it. And then Adoree Jackson was the best out of those options, but it's not like he really distinguished himself over the course of those training camp practices or in the preseason. And you saw that Dallas picked on him. And I think that you're not always going to go up against a 1-2 punch at the receiver position that the Cowboys have, but you can be sure that from here on, including in Kansas City, that opposing teams are going to be targeting that spot. And that is a different reality than what the Eagles were operating with last year when you had Darius Slay and you had Quinion Mitchell, just that's playing at such a high level that it opened so many other things up for the rest of the players and for defense coordinator Vic Fangio. I just looked at the next-gen stats. Adoree Jackson, according to them, allowed 5 receptions for 103 yards on 7 targets, had 2 missed tackles, and, of course, the pass interference right in the end zone there. So it was not a good night for him. And I kind of felt like Jacorian Bennett in the limited snaps, at least from where I was standing, it felt a little bit more controlled when he was in the game.
how much do you think they're going to try to make a little bit more of a concerted effort just to get those guys more involved?
I remember a couple years ago in the opener against Detroit, I think it was, where Devontae Smith, he didn't come away with any catches.
Yeah, the single catch, I remember that. And then they went crazy. Remember that?
Week, they just fed him. They just fed him right after that.
Right,
and I think that you're probably going to see some of that. I just got done rewatching that game from last night, and there were opportunities for Brown here and there, but I think that the Dallas did a nice job of, and Sirianni spoke to this after the game, of matching some of the routes. So there was a couple times where you would have, like there's one instance I'm thinking of in particular where A.J. Brown's running a curl route, and the safety drops at his depth to take that away.
Here on 97.5, The Fanatic, working our way through the 12 o'clock hour. We'll react to what you just heard from Kevin Patulo and what you heard earlier from Vic Fangio coming up, and talk to Jeff Mosher coming up at 1:25. But switching gears back to the Phillies here, I'm Ray Dunn taking you through the midday show. We're getting a chance to talk to the man who covers the team for MLB.com, does a tremendous job also with the Philly Show podcast, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. He is the one and only Todd Zeleki on the Comcast Business Hotline. Todd, how are you today?
How are you, Ray? What's up, man?
I'm doing good. After last night, I finally watched the Phillies beat the Mets. I couldn't be doing much better, honestly.
Been a while.
It has been a while. We're going to start with the good from yesterday because we have a laundry list of injury concerns, postseason concerns that we could line up for you. But Aaron Nola last night, 6 scoreless, looks more like the Aaron Nola that we were accustomed to 4 years. What'd you take out of his performance, and what can he do to get himself into the conversation to be in that top 3 come the NLDS?
Well, his start on Monday night was huge in so many different ways. Huge for him personally. He's going through the worst year of his career by far, and it's potentially huge for the Phillies because they really do need a competent right-handed starter to be in this postseason rotation. And, entering Monday night's game, if the Phillies clinch that first-round bye, they open their postseason in the NLDS. You only need 3 starters, right? And that probably would be, it would be Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, and Jesus Luzardo. But you would like to have a right-hander in there to kind of mix things up, give the hitters a different look, go lefty, righty, lefty, especially, and you're going to need 4 starters in the NLCS. So if Aaron Nola can return to form, get hot at the end of the season, show some things, he doesn't have to go out and do what he did last night, 6 scoreless, but even just 6 innings, 3 runs, just keep the team close, be competitive. I think that would be huge. Especially following the loss of Zach Wheeler, they don't have that right-handed guy right now, but Aaron Nola can be that. So it was a big development. Now he just needs to keep it up in his next few starts.
So just to follow along with that idea, given the season-long merit conversation over the 3 guys you mentioned that would right now slide into your NLDS starting rotation, what do you think the bar has to be for it? I know you gave the 6 innings, 3 earned runs there, but for Nola to really get his way back into that conversation, what do you think we see? Like, how much does he have to do to them? Because I know for the fan base, a lot of people aren't going to sign up to see him because of the way they feel about the season he's had. But to them, how close would the Phillies be at this point to putting him in that postseason rotation?
Well, I think it's already close. Again, like you don't. So they don't need 4 starters in the NLDS because there's an extra off day in there. So you can get through the entire NLDS using only 3 starters, and maybe they end up going with Sanchez, Suarez, Luzardo in the NLDS. But you are going to need 4 starters in the NLCS. So should they get to that point, they're going to need somebody, and to me, he's the leading candidate right now. And it's kind of might be funny to say because he's pitched so poorly most of the season, and we're talking about 1 start on a Monday night against the Mets. But knowing his track record, knowing his history, knowing that nothing really rattles him, if he can, again, he doesn't need to be 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 run allowed. I did mention 3 runs in 6 innings. If he can be that 3 runs, 5 innings, if he can just keep them, if they feel that he can go out and compete and give the offense a chance to win the game and pass the ball, hand the ball to the bullpen in the 6th inning, the 5th inning, with a lead or within striking distance, honestly, I think that it might be all that they need to see because if it's not going to be him, you're talking with Taijuan Walker, who's had a nice season, but I think the Phillies are still hoping for Aaron Nola. You have Walker Buehler, who's a potential wild card. He's going to join the rotation. I think it's on Friday, whatever September 12th is. I think that's Friday.
Yep.
He's going to join the rotation, so he's a potential X factor. If they think they might be able to fix some things with him. Who knows? I think right now, out of those three right-handers I just mentioned, I think Nola's got the edge.
And to the news before that game last night that half the infield was hitting the injured list. Let's start with Trey Turner. Obviously says that it's grade 1. It's a little bit better than what he suffered a year ago. Still thinks it's going to be closer to the postseason, maybe a little bit before. From your eyes and what you're hearing, what do you see in the timeline? And then the concern, the level of play you're going to get from him, because we know he was more timid last year coming back from that hamstring after he suffered it early on in the 2024 campaign.
Yeah, I think for sure it's probably better, about as good as news as you could have expected. And, as soon as he ran down the first baseline and walked off the field, you knew it was probably going to be a strain. But the fact that he said he felt a grabbing and not a pop, sometimes you'll hear players say, yeah, I kind of felt the pop in my hamstring. Well, that's not good. Obviously, that's a much more serious injury. The fact that he said he felt some grabbing and that it is a grade 1 and that they think it'll only be 2 or 3 weeks, it is about as good a news as you could have hoped. Last year I think it was a grade 2. He spent 43 days on the injured list. So that's good. Honestly, it's bad in the sense that you want to rack up the first round bye, and this makes it a little bit more challenging, but good in that it's not a grade 2 and you're not going, well, maybe he'll be back for the World Series if they get that far. I mean, if you can get him back for the NLDS, that would be great. It's important, obviously, that they get that first-round bye so that they don't have to play a wild card series, so they can give him a few more days. Now, in terms of what kind of play you're going to get from him upon his return, yeah, that's a concern because he wasn't running at full speed last year. There were several games. I remember being in Seattle, for instance. I think there's a pinch running opportunity for him late in the game, and Rob did not want to use him. And they were being very careful with him. He wasn't running at full speed, but again, that was coming off a grade 2. Maybe he was being a little bit more cautious, and the fact that this is a little bit less severe, maybe when he does come back, he doesn't feel like he needs to hold back as much because the injury isn't as serious. So, but I'll tell you what, that first round bye I think is very, very important, just to give him a few extra days. I think the wild card series begins on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the division series I believe begins on a Saturday. So if you can give him like 3 or 4 extra days just to kind of get ready to rock and roll, that'd be great. But you're gonna miss a lot of, I can see my pitching and all that stuff. But players have come back after missing that much time and performed well offensively. So we'll see.
And a part of this stretch to get to that second seed is a very important 10-day stretch that they're currently in. Started out pretty good last night with the win over the Mets. They're also not going to have Bohm over that time. What can you tell us about what you're hearing about Alec Bohm? And a big concern for me was the third base production they had the last time he was out was certainly not up to par. How are they planning to deal with that entire side of the infield?
Yeah, it sounds like, mostly Otto Kemp, maybe some Wes Wilson there. But the Bohm thing at least sounds like it'd be more closer on the 10-day side, which is certainly good news. It's something that they just needed to kind of get him through. And again, not ideal. It's never ideal to lose a player like that. But if it has been holding him back offensively, defensively, whatever, if you can get him back on track, get him healthy again, that would be good. They need to get to have a better version of Alec Bohm, just like having a healthy version of Trey Turner is critical, because you need some guys to hit behind Schwarber and Harper in the lineup right now. And, they've had JT hit for it. They've had Bohm hit for it. But if you could get a healthier version of Bohm that can get on track offensively, I mean, that would go a long way. It would really lengthen the lineup up.
We're talking to Todd Zeleki here of MLB.com and the Phillies show. And Todd, I'm going to ask you the question because I know there's a subset of the listeners right now that have talked themselves into it. They saw him get promoted to AAA, and they think that the guy should just be given a shot. Aiden Miller as a potential to fill in here and get a call up somewhere late here. I know you guys touched on the Philly show this week. What do you think the prospects of Aiden Miller are in this Trey Turner absence?
Well, it's certainly interesting because he was absolutely on fire in Double-A the last month or so. I mean, hitting 380 and on base of over 450, a slug over 650. He's been absolutely amazing over the last month. But the fact there's 2 weeks to go, the fact that there's so much on the line, I don't see it happening. Believe me, I would love to see it happen. I think it would be fun to see it happen. But you have a competent player in Edmundo Sosa that can play some shortstop and play very good defensive shortstop. And they have enough of a cushion, so it's not like they're super, super desperate. It's not like it's a long-term injury. You know, if Aiden Miller had gotten off to a great start the first couple months of the season and Trey Turner was going to miss 3 months, yeah, maybe that the equation is a little bit different. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen right now. But again, you know, we were talking about this on the Philly show. Like, it's a fun thing to think about. It's something that I'm sure they at least discussed. It doesn't sound like it got very far. But you know, who knows if you already have Trey Turner down. If something else happens, that could change that equation as well.
And looking at the matchup here with the Mets, one thing that stuck out for this season and what's been an MVP-like season for Kyle Schwarber, the struggles have been there against the Mets. Just a 603 OPS against them this season. What do they do specifically? And it's not just him. They've had a number of guys on this lineup. What do they do specifically in this Phillies team that has really given this lineup trouble?
I'll be honest. I really don't know what the magical what the silver bullet would be for the Phillies to get going against the Mets, but they have pitched them very, very well. The guy last night, McClain, obviously he's got amazing stuff and really keeps them off balance. You know, he's got just fantastic stuff overall. So I really don't know what it is. I do think, especially up at Citi Field, sometimes teams just have their number, and the players will always say, no, it's not in our heads, it's not in our heads. But then, 10 years removed from it, right? Like, I remember John Kruk was talking about this on the broadcast recently with the Giants back in '93. The Giants cleaned the Phillies' clock in '93 and in the seasons before. And he said, we never talked about it publicly, but in our heads, we were like, we do not want to face the Giants in the postseason. We want the Braves. Not that they thought the Braves were going to be easy, but just mentally, they knew that the Giants had their way with them for whatever reason. They couldn't hit very well against the Giants. They couldn't pitch as well against the Giants. And I think that might be the situation with the Phillies against the Mets, especially up at Citi Field. But they had a couple pretty good at bats there. I think it was the second, third inning last night against the Mets, against McClain. So, at home they're a little bit more comfortable. But it's interesting. I think if the season goes the way it goes, and the Mets are the 6th seed and the Dodgers the 3 seed, and the Mets somehow upset the Dodgers, it would be the Phillies would be playing the Mets in the NLDS again, which would be kind of wild.
It would be kind of wild. And it's weird to say, given the Dodgers are the reigning World Series champion, knowing the star power that they have, that there would be people rooting for the Dodgers to beat the Mets in that series. But I think a lot of people around here would be rooting for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and the Phillies, and conversely, like, the Phillies have actually played pretty well against the Dodgers.
Right.
They played well against them earlier this season. They've actually pitched very well against Ohtani the past couple seasons. They've whatever they've done with Ohtani has been working. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like I've been telling people already, like, people say, wow, the offense is really hot and cold, and they lost Wheeler, and I don't think they have a chance. Obviously, the thing with the injury of Turner is a blow, unless he comes, if he wouldn't come back and be ready for the postseason. But every single other team in the National League right now is as flawed as the Phillies, or maybe even more flawed as the Phillies. I was looking this up the other day. The Dodgers, since like early July, are like 5, 6, 7 games under 500. The Mets, have been struggling since they swept the Phillies. The Cubs are a 500 team since mid-July. The Padres are under 500 since mid-August. The Brewers are under 500 since they won 13 in a row. So it's not like, the Phillies have as good a chance as anybody, in my opinion. They just have to play well at the right time. I know some people hate hearing that, but it is the truth. If they play well at the right time, they have as good a chance as anybody of going a long way.
And one last thing for you here, because this was kind of where I opened the show today. Last night, being there at the game, watching that one, Bader has 3 hits. Robertson comes in, strikes out a pair of guys, makes that defensive play. Duran closes it out. There was a lot of conversation from the beginning of the season all the way up until July about what they needed, how they needed to fix, how underwhelming the offseason was for people. To grade out what Dave Dombrowski's done in season to put this team in a position to succeed in the postseason, what would you grade him out in what he's done? Because I continue to sit here and say, hey, we could criticize that offseason, but what they've been able to fix inside of this season, he deserves high praise for what they were able to get done throughout July to put them in the position they are right now in September.
100%. So, if you would grade the offseason moves, Max Kepler has come on lately. He's become like a nice platoon player in right field, occasionally playing some left field. You probably still say, it's a D at best, right? Because Romano has not worked out at all. They released Joe Ross. The offseason moves did not work as expected. But the July 31st moves, the July moves, as you mentioned, Duran, Bader, and David Robertson, boy, you have to almost say an A, because Duran has totally changed the feeling of the Phillies having a lead going into the late innings. It's literally now just like Ken Kirkering, Strom, Robertson, get the ball to Duran. If they can get the ball to Duran, I think they're going to win this game. I think that's the general feeling most Phillies fans right now and the players in that clubhouse have. Bader has brought some swagger to the team. He's brought a great glove in center field. He's been getting on base a lot. He's been hitting well. He's allowed now Rob Thompson to go to these platoon situations in left field and right field, and those have worked. And then, of course, David Robertson, he was a great signing because, again, he's not a closer, but he fits into that Strom-Kirkering 6th, 7th, 8th inning role, and all it did was cost him money. It didn't cost him any prospect capital, and so I think that was big as well. So it's amazing. You compare the offseason moves to the in-season moves, and it's like, man, was there a different general manager, president of baseball ops making these moves? No, same guy. It's just that one batch of moves did not work out at all, really, and the other ones have been working out beautifully so far.
Yeah, credit where credit's due on that one. And Todd, always appreciate getting the chance to talk with you. We'll definitely be talking to you down the line. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Take care.
Todd Zeleki of MLB.com. Also, the Phillies show does a tremendous job covering the Phils. I just had to ask him, is he in the same boat as me for this one? He is. It's nice to see him in the same boat as me. We'll react to what Todd had to say. Also, reacting to Kevin Patulo's presser from earlier this hour. A lot still to get to on the show. I'm Ray Dunn, taking through middays here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, a Birds Insider Update on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
No word yet on Jaylen Carter. I'm Sean Rodman, and we are still waiting a decision from the NFL on Jaylen Carter's potential punishment. Vic Fangio told the media earlier today that Adoree Jackson will start this week, and he still prefers Cooper DeJean in the slot. Kevin Patulo did not give any indication if Landon Dickerson will be ready for Sunday, as he deals with back injury that he re-aggravated, it appeared to be, on Thursday night. Eagles have traded for running back and kick return Tank Bigsby from the Jaguars for a 5th and 6th rounder as well. The Eagles are traveling to Kansas City this weekend for a Super Bowl rematch on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the best Birds coverage, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Do you feel unfulfilled?
How much do you think they're going to try to make a little bit more of a concerted effort just to get those guys more involved?
I remember a couple years ago in the opener against Detroit, I think it was, where Devontae Smith, he didn't come away with any catches.
Yeah, the single catch, I remember that. And then they went crazy, remember that?
Week, they just fed him. They just fed him right after that.
Right,
I think that you're probably going to see some of that. I just got done rewatching that game from last night, and there were opportunities for Brown here and there, but I think that the Dallas did a nice job of, and Sirianni spoke to this after the game, of matching some of the routes. So there was a couple times where you would have, like there's one instance I'm thinking of in particular where A.J. Brown's running a curl route and the safety drops at his depth to take that away, and then Hurts ends up hitting Dallas Goedert underneath. And there was just a lot of that sort of going on. The passing game, maybe it wasn't as spectacular as you would hope. I think that Hurts's comments post-game were kind of telling when I asked him about how the operation went with him and Kevin Patulo, and he was mostly glowing about it, but said, like, sometimes you don't want to be reactive. You want to be a little bit more proactive. So I think it's, maybe getting a little bit more on the aggressive side from a passing standpoint might be something that they talk about moving forward. A.J. Brown, obviously, a really big part of that. So I think before long, we'll see Brown get going.
Yeah. Going forward, how much do you think they're going to let Adoree Jackson kind of figure this out on the field, given the fact they play the Chiefs?
It really kind of speaks to what we did see during the course of the summer training camp, and that was that the CB2 just never got an answer. And as much as they wanted to paint it up, it just never happened. I mean, they wanted the job to go to Keely Ringo, I think, and he didn't grab it. And then Adoree Jackson was the best out of those options, but it's not like he really distinguished himself over the course of those training camp practices or in the preseason. And you saw that Dallas picked on him. And I think that you're not always going to go up against a 1-2 punch at the receiver position that the Cowboys have, but you can be sure that from here on, including in Kansas City, that opposing teams are going to be targeting that spot. And that is a different reality than what the Eagles were operating with last year when you had Darius Slay and you had Quinion Mitchell, just that's playing at such a high level that it opened so many other things up for the rest of the players and for defense coordinator Vic Fangio. I just looked at the next-gen stats. Adoree Jackson, according to them, allowed 5 receptions for 103 yards on 7 targets, had 2 missed tackles, and, of course, the pass interference right in the end zone there. So it was not a good night for him. And I kind of felt like Jacorian Bennett in the limited snaps, at least from where I was standing, it felt a little bit more controlled when he was in the game.
Offering 0% financing for 48 months, rebates and tax credits up to $4,300 from purchasing a heating and cooling system. Learn more at ServiceFirstHVAC.com. I'm Ray Dunn taking you through the midday show here. Great to see BP, Brett Petrelli stopping in, talk about promoting. He was like, there's a certain game in town that might be trying to get tickets to, give away to people. A certain game on Saturday. I believe we're going to be talking to the head coach of that squad tomorrow in the 1 o'clock hour. I'll be there on Saturday. I can assure you of that. Sean Rodman, also a Temple graduate. Busy. It's okay. Sorry. I didn't invite you. That's on me.
Yeah.
That's my fault.
You didn't invite me. Andrew Salciunas didn't either.
He's going. Oh, yeah, because we've talked about doing the... You know what? He tweeted about me to me about a tailgate, and he hasn't said a single thing about that. I've seen him now back-to-back days. I'm going to have to check in on that. I wonder how many people we could get to rally around a little Temple, Oklahoma tailgate with Salciunas.
I could definitely make an appearance there.
Oh, all of a sudden you're free. Oh, all right. I see how it is. All of a sudden, too good for the football game, but you're good enough for a tailgate.
I didn't say that I wasn't going to make it into the game or not. I would love to make it into the game.
All right. Now, this sounds good. Let's see how many other people. We got plenty of Temple graduates around here. We can get some people for Saturday.
Might be able to get Silvana, a number of other people as well.
Here. Now you're just throwing out invites here. All right. Back to what we just got from Todd Zeleki there. A number of things. I kept trying to, at the beginning there, you heard me, Sean, try and poke him to get Aaron Nola into that 3-man rotation. Wouldn't budge on that one.
Wouldn't budge on the 3.
Which is also where I'm at. So I appreciated that from him. Went into a number of different things with regards to the health of players. He would be excited, but I think Aiden Miller would be an exciting thing for people. I don't think it's the logical thing for people right now. Obviously, if something changes health-wise within this organization over the next 10 days, that would be something. The Bohm thing, I know we're all concerned about Turner. Would be concerned about that because I don't love defensively or offensively your replacement for him at third base. If you get Turner, I hope it's just a 10-day thing for him. That's another thing that really concerns me. And then, he gave the A of the trade deadline or the July acquisitions there for Dave Dombrowski. And I'm there to agree with him on that one. So it was good to talk with Todd. Coming up at 1:25, we're going to talk with Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds and Philly Voice, breaking down everything going on with the Eagles. But we did hear from Kevin Patulo earlier this hour. And Patulo, not that I took nothing from it. Everyone compared to Vic Fangio gives you more coach speak. So, he talked about letting Hurts play and letting him be efficient, not trying to stress forcing things down the field because there's all the conversation, the fact they only went beyond 10 yards. I think it was once, and it was that play to Dotson. It might be one or two, just a few passes beyond 10 yards. I'm trying to think in my head all the different ones that stick out from Thursday. Obviously, the Dotson one sticks out the most. They didn't feel like they ran into too many of the stack boxes. I think he said blocking it properly was something, which is an interesting critique to levy after 1 week. I don't know if necessary. I mean, I think there was definitely some of that when Dickerson's out and you're still rolling with steam for the first time. But he felt good about their mix of the run and pass. There's a very clear line of questioning this week for the offense. And it's, do you think they could get this passing attack to a level where it's not so much, hey, just take what they give you, where you are actually, kind of dropping it into a little bit deeper down the field against defenses? And can you get A.J. Brown more involved, which he said that, is there a down where we can get that done? So basically looking at the way they move the football, if they're at second and short, can we justify that and going to A.J. Brown to force him to get his? Those to me are the situations where I'm interested in what they do. I think this will be a bigger conversation, probably a conversation we get into tomorrow or leading into the rest of the week about forcing it to A.J. Brown. How much do you need them to actually address having their star receiver involved with the game? But if you were a fantasy football player this week, let me put it to you this way. With Saquon Barkley, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, you walked away somewhat underwhelmed with the overall production of what you got from your guys. There's a lot of fantasy football players out there. I am a fantasy football player. When it comes to the Eagles succeeding, I really don't care if you get your fantasy numbers. I'm just cool with them winning a football game. It doesn't have to be sexy. Just get the job done. That's more where I fall on that one. And I think that's kind of what we got from Patulo on that. But coming up, 1 o'clock, we'll have the Rodman Report. We'll also, at 1:25, talk to Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds. And, of course, in this 1 o'clock hour, we're getting you set for another Phillies-Mets matchup tonight. And they take back-to-back games against the Mets? That hasn't happened, I think, since last September. No, before that. My gosh. It's been a long time. Let's please get that done tonight. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Adoree Jackson will start. I'm Sean Rodman, and Vic Fangio told the media that Jackson will start on the outside this weekend against the Chiefs. He still prefers DeJean in the slot role as well. We have no update on any Jaylen Carter punishment quite yet as we await the league's decision. The Eagles have also traded for running back and kick returner Tank Bigsby for a 5th and 6th rounder heading back to Jacksonville. And if in case you missed the coordinators earlier, you can listen to that podcasted on 975thefanatic.com. Inside the Birds and Philly Voice, Jeff Mosher will join us at 1:25 as well. And the Phillies are back in action today with the Mets and with Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phillies and Sean Manaea for the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45. Phillies are going to be without Trey Turner again tonight as he was placed on the IL. Turner was diagnosed with a grade 1 strain on his hamstring. Here is Turner on his potential timetable to return.
As soon as possible, obviously, but more importantly for the playoffs is obviously, I think, the most important. So trying to find that fine line of trying to get ready for that, but also not rushing it back.
Alec Bohm was also added to the injured list yesterday for a shoulder injury. This update is also brought to you by Bet365. Football is back. Get ready for the season at Bet365. When it comes to sportsbooks, Bet365 has it all. Download the app today and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the best Birds coverage, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
How much do you think they're going to try to make a little bit more of a concerted effort just to get those guys more involved?
I remember a couple years ago in the opener against Detroit, I think it was, where Devontae Smith, he didn't come away with any catches.
Yeah, the single catch, I remember that. And then they went crazy, remember that?
Week, they just fed him. They just fed him right after that.
Right,
I think that you're going to see some of that. I just got done rewatching that game from last night, and there were opportunities for Brown here and there, but I think that the Dallas did a nice job of, and Sirianni spoke to this after the game, of matching some of the routes. And so there was a couple times where you would have, like there's one instance I'm thinking of in particular where A.J. Brown's running a curl route, and the safety drops at his depth to take that away, and then Hurts ends up hitting Dallas Goedert underneath, and there was just a lot of that sort of going on. The passing game, maybe it wasn't as spectacular as you would hope. I think that Hurts's comments post-game were kind of telling when I asked him about how the operation went with him and Kevin Patulo, and he was mostly glowing about it, but said, sometimes you don't want to be reactive. You want to be a little bit more proactive. So I think it's, maybe getting a little bit more on the aggressive side from a passing standpoint might be something that they talk about moving forward. A.J. Brown, obviously, a really big part of that. So I think before long, we'll see Brown get going.
Yeah. Going forward, how much do you think they're going to let Adoree Jackson kind of figure this out on the field, given the fact they play the Chiefs?
It really kind of speaks to what we did see during the course of the summer training camp, and that was that the CB2 just never got an answer. And as much as they wanted to paint it up, it just never happened. I mean, they wanted the job to go to Keely Ringo, I think, and he didn't grab it. And then Adoree Jackson was the best out of those options, but it's not like he really distinguished himself over the course of those training camp practices or in the preseason. And you saw that Dallas picked on him. And I think that you're not always going to go up against a 1-2 punch at the receiver position that the Cowboys have, but you can be sure that from here on, including in Kansas City, that opposing teams are going to be targeting that spot. And that is a different reality than what the Eagles were operating with last year when you had Darius Slay and you had Quinion Mitchell, just that's playing at such a high level that it opened so many other things up for the rest of the players and for defense coordinator Vic Fangio. I just looked at the next-gen stats. Adoree Jackson, according to them, allowed 5 receptions for 103 yards on 7 targets, had 2 missed tackles, and, of course, the pass interference right in the end zone there. So it was not a good night for him. And I kind of felt like Jacorian Bennett in the limited snaps, at least from where I was standing, it felt a little bit more controlled when he was in the game.
how much do you think they're going to try to make a little bit more of a concerted effort just to get those guys more involved?
I remember a couple years ago in the opener against Detroit, I think it was, where Devontae Smith, he didn't come away with any catches.
Yeah, the single catch, I remember that. And then they went crazy.
Remember
that?
Week, they just fed him. They just fed him right after that.
Right,
and I think that you're probably going to see some of that. I just got done rewatching that game from last night, and there were opportunities for Brown here and there, but I think that the Dallas did a nice job of, and Sirianni spoke to this after.
HD1 Burlington, Philadelphia, Beasley Media Group Station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the midday show. Sean Rodman producing the program, and we got the Rodman Report coming up in a second. Sean, before we get there, I see we had a text earlier on the voice memos.
Yes.
And I would like to get back to that text because if you missed it earlier, Peyton Manning sends Eli Manning 35-minute long voice memos to prepare for their Peyton and Eli Monday Night Football show. And I strongly believe that the voice memo text, the text that you send where someone has to hit play and listen to your voice and not to talk to text, I'm talking about the entire message is just your voice talking to someone, is the worst possible thing. Just call me. I hate it. I despise it. You are not a podcast host in my messages. I saw that we had a text on it. Please enlighten me on the text about this voice memo.
I have two for you, actually, now. That DeMarcus in Maryland checking in says, I send voice memos when I have too much to say for a text, but not enough for a phone call. But Peyton was out of line for 35 minutes of a memo.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And DeMarcus, you sound like a wonderful person because you listen to the show, you text into the show, so I'm not going to insult you personally, but if you ever do get my phone number, please do not send me a voice memo. Send me 17 texts in succession before you send me a voice memo. Text is about text.
Another person checking in, no name on this one, not necessarily a voice memo, but a voicemail, says if someone calls and leaves me a voicemail over 30 seconds, I just call them immediately back. If they asked if I heard their message, I'll tell them no. This way they could just tell me what they wanted to tell me.
Voicemail I'm cool with. Because that's like kind of like the phone call, like the voicemail. I'll usually just read the summary and then give you a call back. That's kind of my go-to with that. Though the long voicemail is kind of absurd. If you're going anywhere longer than about 45 seconds for a voicemail, that's ridiculous. We've spent about 45 seconds too long on the voice memo thing, so it's time. 1 o'clock for the Rodman Report.
Now, the Rodman Report.
All right, we talked about this last Monday in the Rodman Report, along with Orion Kerkering. Kerkering and that, right before that, Rodman reported last Monday. On Sunday against the Braves, he went out and pitched not even a full an out. He had one hit, one earned run, and 2 walks in that. Since then, I brought up the point, is it time for David Robertson to kind of take over as that lead right arm ahead of Kerkering in that regard? And, well, he has. Since then, on the 3rd against Milwaukee, Kerkering was used in an inning of work. He had 0 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, 2 strikeouts. That was in the 8th inning as the Phillies led 6-3. But they have used now Robertson, Strahm, Duran in some way, shape, or form, whether it's Robertson in the 8th or the 7th, then Strahm since then as well, for now 4 games.
Yep, it's Robertson's job.
Is that even
from Kerkering?
But is it even? Can there even be any hope that Kerkering can be somewhat of an arm that you can use as a high leverage still this year? This year specifically.
There's hope that you could get to that point, just like there's hope that we're not going to be sweating when Aaron Nola walks out there to take them out in the postseason. There's hope in that sense. There's more hope for me than Kerkering with regards to getting to a high leverage spot than there is about Aaron Nola. But I just use that as the comparison. Yeah. I mean, if he really, figures it out here over the next 3 weeks, where I see him, get back to something of what he was before, but it's pretty clear. If they've got a lead and it's a slim lead and they need a right-hander, it's Robertson right now and it's not Kerkering.
And then even on, against the Miami over the weekend, when they lost 5-4, he came in for Alvarado, and Alvarado had 2 outs. He got 1 out in that inning, but Phils were down at that time, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, he's fallen on the depth chart. That's the biggest thing for him right now. He's not. When we went through that pyramid of trust that I keep talking about, Duran being 9th inning, and then you fill it out from there. It's Duran, and now it's Robertson, Strahm.
Has he fallen in that pyramid?
Yeah, it's him and Banks now as the piece just below the Strahm Robertson level.
going on to that, is Robertson pitched well enough for it to be elevated, or is it more so that Kerkering has pitched poorly that they've flipped in the
Robertson's been really good since he got here, and Kerkering has been too inconsistent.
Is that a problem long term for Kerkering though?
I mean, I'm not gonna say that he's in like long-term trouble of like losing a job here. I think ultimately, long-term, there's things they'll probably iron up with him over the offseason, work with him in spring training, and he comes back, probably a part of your circle of trust. Does it mean that you're going to be probably sniffing around a little bit more in terms of bullpen help come this offseason? Yeah, because you need an insurance policy there. But I don't know if long-term, I'm like, I don't know if this kid's ever going to figure it out. He's like, not to say it this way, but he's like my age, isn't he? Like, he's young.
I was going to say 25, I believe.
Yeah, he's got time to figure that out. He's good. Like, when you have that level of stuff, I give you a longer leeway to figure things out. It's just, and it's not encouraging the second half of the season's gone the way it has for him. But come this offseason, Duran, Kerkering are the two that are Duran, Kerkering, Strom, three that you would have locked in. And then from there, you're trying to figure things out. Banks, I to be honest with you, I haven't looked a ton at the bullpen situation past this season, mostly because I'm still locked into this season. But Robertson is not back. I was texting back and forth with Double M about my boy Robertson last night, making sure that he was aware of that. And I was like, yeah, next year he's going to be pitching to you in your leagues. That's how old he is.
Tanner Banks, by the way, has a few years of arbitration
left. So they'll still have him. Yeah. I mean, I don't think long-term, I'm not like tremendously concerned that he's not a part of your long-term plans and he's not going to be able to get back to a high-leverage option. It's just in the postseason. Right now, he's clearly falling behind the 40-year-old man. And that's okay.
I think it's a bit concerning to fall below Robertson. Yes, he's pitched well. But there's been times where we've wanted more out of Kerkering, and we just haven't seen it yet. Is it a problem long-term? No, I don't think yet it's a problem long-term, but I think in the short term, it's interesting that I don't know who would be the next righty up after him at this point in the bullpen that I would trust the most. There's a couple guys that are fighting for that spot, but
if he falls behind Trevino, then we'll start talking.
How far away do you think we are from that? Because I still think there's a little bit away.
Still pretty far.
Who would you trust in between if you had to go for someone on base with 1 out or 2 outs and you need to get an out?
I only had those two guys available.
Those two guys were available.
I'm still trying Kirk.
I mean, I think that's the logical answer because you've seen it out of him before, but at some point, if you're in the playoffs, at that point, you don't have another righty arm. Who would it be?
It's tough. I think you're making it sound a little bit more dire than it is for him right now.
Yeah.
I think you've,
there's still a month to go.
Points been delivered here. Robertson's over him in the depth chart. I don't know necessarily that I'm like, all right, Kerkering, you're going to sit there and watch unless we have a 5-run lead or we're down 3 runs. Like, if they're up 2 or 3 runs and need someone in the 6th inning, like, start only goes 5 and you need someone to get you the 6th to line up that Robertson, Strom, or Strom, Robertson, Duran, I'm still going to him there. But he's fallen in that pyramid of trust. Duran's right here, Strom, Robertson, then Banks, Kerkering, and you probably trust Banks more, but he just falls as that second lefty because of Strom, Banks, Kerkering, and then I don't know who that third guy in that level of the pyramid is going to be at this point because I always anticipate Luzardo getting the bullpen. That hasn't happened. So, good Robin report. So it's an interesting, thought-provoking piece of what this bullpen will look like coming up in the postseason. We still have Jeff Mosher to get to coming up at 1:25. Something that Tim McManus talked about with us on Friday following the game. The aggressiveness of this passing game. We'll get back to some birds, talk to Jeff Mosher, and then final segment of this show. Trust me, we'll get you ready for Phillies Mets tonight because can't wait for game 2 of this 4-game set. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the midday show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Philly fans, you are the...
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us, and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from, about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
We got to do the old
slow starts.
Julio
right.
Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed, and it shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down. It's kind of a weird game to assess because both offenses really started to stall after the delay of game. And nobody could be stopped, before the Lightning came, and then after the Lightning came, nobody could score. So, how much of that is Patulo adjustments, etc. There were a couple corner blitzes in succession that I watched where the offense just didn't really seem to have a great answer for. So I don't think it was a perfect game for Patulo. I think there are things to clean up, but I think if you look at it as a whole, the fact that it's his first game calling plays, first game working that operation with Jalen Hurts, and that they got off to that fast start, there's probably more encouraging things than not to build off of.
Speaking of encouraging, Jahad Campbell just absolutely, I thought, acquitted himself more than adequately. Playing alongside a guy like Zach Bond, I think that Vic Fangio, for me, a guy like Vic Fangio that wants to be able to run certain things, he's got two guys that are going to be able to run, I think, everything that he would like to run. You gave him car keys to 2 Maseratis. And I think that this is something that I think he's going to get better. He's still going to make those mistakes, and you're going to see that. But I would think that that's a guy that certainly has turned a lot of heads and has given into some of the expectations at this point early on.
An embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Right? What who are we? Who are we?
What is going on? I don't even know who we are anymore. And Campbell, I agree. What a debut. He flashed every day during training camp. It wasn't always perfect. In fact, I think in pass coverage was really sometimes where it got shaky. I remember a couple times that he gave up, whether it was a wheel route against Will Shipley or a touchdown to where he blew an assignment during the joint practices against the Browns, and you're like, okay, the passing game's maybe where he needs some refinement. And then you see that play where he just carries the field with Ferguson and comes up with that PBU, and it's like linebackers really don't do that. So you recognize that you have a special talent, and to your point, Amy, it's paired with another special talent in Zach Bond, who has a similar skill set in that way. That just opens up so many things. While we're talking about the restrictions in the secondary with the questions at safety and CB2 in particular, the flip side of that for Fangio is that if you have 2 linebackers like that, man, how creative can you get? And what different looks can you present an offense that they're not normally presented because they just don't have that ability at the linebacker position. So it's a new day in Philadelphia, I guess.
Here on The Fanatic, I'm Ray Dunn taking you through it here in the 1 o'clock hour. Coming up, Jeff Mosher inside the Birds, Philly Voice, talking Eagles football with us at 1:25. And talking a little bit of Eagles football, we got a chance to catch up with ESPN's Tim McManus, which we will Fridays here on the Midday Show every week during football season. And we talked to him following that game on Friday against the Cowboys. And obviously a lot of us come out of that game with, all right, they won. I thought Hurts looked really good, but part of Hurts looking really good was his ability to run with it, scramble, pick up first downs, and there was a lot of underneath in the passing game, not a ton of real, even intermediate attacking for them. There was obviously the big play to Jahan Dotson, and A.J. Brown was quiet in that game. Dante Smith, quiet in that game. Where does the passing game go from here? And Tim McManus on Friday talked with us a little bit about this passing attack getting more aggressive as the season went on.
Passing game, maybe it wasn't as spectacular as you would hope. I think that Hurts's comments post-game were kind of telling when I asked him about how the operation went with him and Kevin Patulo, and he was mostly glowing about it, but said sometimes you don't want to be reactive, you want to be a little bit more proactive. So I think it's maybe getting a little bit more on the aggressive side from a passing standpoint might be something that they talk about moving forward.
So that idea of aggression today, Kevin Patulo met with the media, and He had talked about not wanting to force anything and just pushing the ball downfield any way they possibly could. It'll be interesting, and I said this is a conversation we're definitely going to get into coming up really in the next couple days and kind of get into it right now. Of, can you force that ball to a receiver? Are you trying to manufacture the opportunities for them, or are you forcing the opportunities to them? I would like to see them try and force feed AJ the way I know every single time we get into this conversation, and it's asked of Sirianni. He mentions back in 2022 that Lions game where, we didn't get the ball to Devontae. Then Devontae had the big game the next week, and it's a big thing. And we go back to last year when the Panthers game happens, and then AJ says the passing game's a problem. Obviously, you get Brandon Graham's comments. The whole week ensues there. The Steelers game happens, and then A.J. Brown scores a touchdown, and he and Jalen Hurts are dancing. I think we all know where this is going to go, so it's almost important that we acknowledge what's happened before we talk about what they might do, because I think what has to happen this week is what's happened before. And, hey, this person that wasn't involved last week, it's not that he has said anything to indicate unhappiness, to indicate that there are problems there. He just needs to be taken care of, and he needs to get the football his way. And they need to make him a bigger part of what they do offensively, because with that, they're going to be able to put up more points, to look a lot cleaner, crisper in the operation. They need to find a way to get it to him coming up this week. It has to be a part of what they do offensively, and it has to be something that they, again, force is a strong word, but it's probably the apt word in this case, because if you don't force these opportunities, don't force these play calls towards A.J. Brown, you're putting yourself, again, kind of in harm's way of not using one of your best weapons and not, again, reaching that ceiling as an offense that you want to. It's week one reaction. So not telling you it's never going to happen, not telling you it can't happen. If it doesn't happen in week two, we'll sit here and we'll continue to talk about it. But I can't overreact to tell you, I don't know if this passing game is going to get to the point where it needs to be. But I could tell you that going towards week two, there has to be a concerted effort to force it towards him and try to make it work for him going forward, and starting with Kansas City, because Kansas City, and Patulo got into this today, they're looking back at that Super Bowl to figure out how they slowed down Saquon Barkley. Look at how they slowed down Saquon Barkley. And with that, that of course makes the passing game all that much more important, because we saw it last week. Running game didn't, 6 carries for no yards in the fourth quarter. Running game wasn't what it has been. It wasn't that way in the Super Bowl. But it's more on this passing game, and you need it, especially to your biggest target after last week. We'll talk about that coming up with Jeff Mosher. Joins us from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice in the next segment, breaking down everything going on with the Birds, a couple of moves to ask him about, of course, everything you heard today from Fangio and Patulo. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Update.
Dory Jackson will start. I'm Sean Rodman. And according to Vic Fangio, he told the media that Jackson will start on the outside, as he still prefers Cooper DeJean in the slot. The Eagles are still waiting on Jaylen Carter's punishment. He has not been notified, nor has the team been notified by the league yet on any decision regarding a fine or a suspension. The Eagles have traded for running back / kick return Tank Bigsby from the Jaguars for a 5th and 6th round pick. He is expected to help with kick returns. And Inside the Birds and Philly Voices, Jeff Mosher will join us next in regards to all things Eagles. Phillies are back in action against the Mets tonight, with Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Phils and Sean Manaea for the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45. Phillies will be without Trey Turner again tonight. He was placed on the injured list. Turner was diagnosed with a grade 1 hamstring on his hamstring. Then here is Turner on his potential timetable to return.
As soon as possible, obviously, but more importantly for the playoffs is obviously, I think, the most important. So trying to find that fine line of trying to get ready for that, but also not rushing it back.
Alec Bohm was also added to the injured list yesterday as well. This update is brought to you by Electrical Workers Local 269 and Electrical Training Alliance. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 269, NECA, and the Electrical Training Alliance can offer a career with no college debt. To learn more, go to IBEW269.com. I'm Sean Rodman on 97.5 The Fanatic.
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from, about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
We got to do the old
slow starts.
Julio Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed and shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down. It's kind of a weird game to assess because both offenses really started to stall after the delay of game. And nobody could be stopped, before the lightning came, and then after the lightning came, nobody could score. So, how much of that is Patulo adjustments, etc. There were a couple corner blitzes in succession that I watched where the offense just didn't really seem to have a great answer for. So I don't think it was a perfect game for Patulo. I think there are things to clean up, but I think if you look at it as a whole, it's the fact that it's his first game calling plays, first game working that operation with Jalen Hurts, and that they got off to that fast start. There's probably more encouraging things than not to build off of.
Speaking of encouraging, Jahad Campbell just absolutely, I thought, acquitted himself more than adequately. Playing alongside a guy like Zach Bond, I think that Vic Fangio, for me, a guy like Vic Fangio that wants to be able to run certain things, he's got two guys that are going to be able to run, I think, everything that he would like to run. You gave him car keys to 2 Maseratis. And I think that this is something that I think he's going to get better. He's still going to make those mistakes, and you're going to see that. But I would think that that's a guy that certainly has turned a lot of heads and has given into some of the expectations at this point early on.
An embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Right?
What
who are we? Who are we?
What is going on? I don't even know who we are anymore. And Campbell, I agree. What a debut. He flashed every day during training camp. It wasn't always perfect. In fact, I think in pass coverage was really sometimes where it got shaky. I remember a couple times that he gave up, whether it was a wheel route against Will Shipley or a touchdown to where he blew an assignment during the joint practices against the Browns, and you're like, okay, the passing game's maybe where he needs some refinement. And then you see that play where he just carries the field with Ferguson and comes up with that PBU, and it's like linebackers really don't do that. So you recognize that you have a special talent, and to your point, Amy, it's paired with another special talent in Zach Bond, who has a similar skill set in that way. That just opens up so many things. While we're talking about the restrictions in the secondary with the questions at safety and CB2 in particular, the flip side of that for Fangio is that if you have 2 linebackers like that, man, how creative can you get? And what different looks can you present an offense that they're not normally presented because they just don't have that ability at the linebacker position. So it's a new day in Philadelphia, I guess.
7-5, The Fanatic. In a few moments here, we'll be joined by Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds and Philly Voice, breaking down everything going on with the Eagles. Look forward to talking to him, especially after we heard from the coordinators today. Always good to talk with Jeff, but love for him to break down a little bit of the coach speak. Someone who's been around this Eagles team for a good long time. Before we get to him, I want to let you know the Fanatic deal of the week. Check it out. It's a 4-pack of tickets to Treehouse World for half off. Adventure awaits. Climb, zipline, and explore at Treehouse World in Westchester for half the price. Get this exclusive offer while supplies last at 975thefanatic.com/deals. We all cleared away. We got our guy from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice, Jeff Mosher, on the Comcast Business Hotline. Always look forward to talking with Jeff. Plenty of Eagles insight. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ray. Thanks for having me on. What's going on?
Thanks for joining us. Just basking in the afterglow of a win that, as we talk about it more this week, some people are finding more and more to pick apart, make me feel like I shouldn't be happy about 1-0. So let's get first.
It kind of feels like it happened 3 weeks ago now, doesn't it? With all the time in between and all the talking that's gone on.
I know. And watching all over the weekend and everyone playing comparison game between what you saw Thursday, what you saw over the weekend, it feels like I need a game tonight, but I know that I would not be happy with the game tonight because then I would go a week and a half without Eagles football, and then I'd already feel that way come Friday.
There you go.
So I want to start, though, with something I thought I would hear about yesterday. Didn't hear about yesterday. Thought I'd hear about today by the time we got to talking with you. Still haven't. What are you hearing about the Jaylen Carter situation, and what do you expect to come from this situation?
My interpretation is it's probably not great that we still have gone this long without hearing about it. I'm sure some people are imagining, a room full of suits at the Park Ave and NFL arguing over this. I don't think that's the case. It's usually involves more investigation, more question asking, checking precedent, then examining, as they go forward, well, how do you want to handle this situation? What the NFL always does is make decisions that it feels are best suited for the NFL, obviously. And they have cracked down this year, and that started in the preseason, on taunting. They have put an emphasis on sportsmanship. And so I'm sure there's some kind of discussion of looking at precedent, but also balancing that on what kind of message they want to send going forward as they're cracking down, so to speak, or in reinforcing sportsmanship rules.
So as we get to that point, like if I anoint you, Jeff Mosher, just commissioner of the NFL in this one, where do you think you would come down on this?
Well, so let's take the context out of it. I'm just the commissioner. I'm not trying to make a statement based on our recent reinforcement of sportsmanship rules or things like that. I'm of the belief for cases like this that when you get ejected from a game, you pay the price. That is your penalty. The crime was spitting. The punishment was you don't get to play in the game. And then you can let the team handle it from there. If the team wants to impose a fine or a sit them for a half of a game, let the team handle that. But that's not really how the NFL goes about it. And in fact, they've tried to take in recent years, ever since the personal conduct policy reinforcement, they don't really want teams handling personal conduct policy stuff because there was a long time there where guys would get in trouble and the team wouldn't do anything about it because they wanted the guy to play on Sunday. So, but me personally, I feel like, I think spitting is about as reprehensible as it can be when you spit in somebody's face or eye or anything like that. So I would certainly probably place a phone call over to Jaylen Carter and let him know that, he was ejected from the game and he is on watch for his behavior going forward. But I probably wouldn't do anything further than that, other than maybe a big fine.
Yeah, and I think precedent, I went with the Mike Florio, the Pro Football Talk story about spitting before and what we've seen in terms of this league. The fine felt like the likely outcome yesterday when we got on the air, and I was expecting the answer there. Didn't come. Expected the answer today. Still hasn't come, so we'll wait to see with that. But some of the news that we have gotten this week, another trade every time we talk, another trade to react to here, Jeff. Tank Bigsby, what do you make of the deal the Eagles made to land the running back?
Yeah, this one was an interesting one. I mean, giving up 2 picks for a running back who, had clearly worked his way down the pecking order there in Jacksonville, a little strange to me. Normally, I get that the Eagles have a lot of picks to work with, but I don't necessarily advocate for just trading them just because. And, usually a running back is a fungible position where you can find what you're looking for, especially for a backup running back. I realize that he has kick return abilities and will probably occupy those. We'll have to wait and see how bad the rib injury was for Will Shipley, and if that's going to put him out for a while. So I can understand the need for a backup running back, and to have someone who's talented. Bigsby's talented. He's a compact, low-to-the-ground runner. He's good for the style of run that the Eagles use, which is a lot of inside run, inside zone, duo, between the tackles running. He fits that really well. I just question why you had to give up 2 draft picks for a player like that when you have A.J. Dillon there in your room already. Now, he doesn't return kicks. I feel like even if you didn't have Will Shipley, you could probably find someone who could, but how he is aggressive, and he will make moves to fill holes. And I'm curious to see when Shipley's healthy, and if healthy, what does that mean for A.J. Dillon? What does it mean for the running back room as a whole?
That's pretty much my exact read. I was very curious that the 2 picks for me, when I feel like there's other holes for you to potentially address with this roster that we could find out, within a month, like, hey, you really need to go out and get someone. Again, not that they're high picks, but they're picks regardless. They're ammunition for you. And then his role in this offense with a healthy Will Shipley, he doesn't exactly fit the Will Shipley role while Shipley's outside of being the kick returner, at least in my eyes.
Right, and that's why I kind of look at A.J. Dillon and say, this guy's not gotten a lot of work. I mean, he missed all last year. Was he one of those guys who was kind of on the fringe anyway at cut down, but they wanted to have a third running back? And, and the fact that they brought back Montrell Johnson to the practice squad, I believe, who's also a between the tackles runner, just makes me think that there's a corresponding move yet to be made in that room that may not be this week, but may be in a week or 2.
Well, we'll see with that one, because I think you and I are both walking down the same path with what happens with that running back room. But to take you to the other side of the ball, late last week, Zadarius Smith, the addition made there to the edge rusher room, which was already interesting to look at, given Azeez Ojulari inactive for the first game. What do you see as they continue to work with the depth at edge rusher here in the early going of the season?
Yeah, right. One of my favorite things, I'm sure you appreciate it too, all of us in the media do, is the candor that Vic Fangio speaks with, and sometimes it's funny because he just throws like cold water on things that sometimes it's like, I think fans are pretty excited about Zadarius Smith because even at his age, I mean, he had a really productive year last year being a situational pass rusher for the Lions, playing earlier in the year for the Browns. I mean, the pass rush win rate, if you're into the advanced analytics, is really good. I mean, it's a good addition. And Vic's kind of like, yeah, well, we got to see what he's got. we have to see how he fits our defense and things of that nature. It sort of reminded me of when he was asked about Adoree Jackson in training camp, and he said it's time to see what Adoree is or isn't, and he's got some things he has to learn. I mean, we're talking about a 9-year veteran here. When your coordinator says you have a lot of things to learn.
Or that teams were justified to move on from you. That was the other one, saying that.
Yes, that was. And on top of that, I didn't really watch tape of him either. So that was really interesting stuff. I mean, he made it seem like he's not real familiar with Zadarius Smith's resume, but he thinks that he does have some abilities. But he's right. Vic's edge rushers can't just come in here and rush the passer. You have to be able to drop. You don't have to be great at it, but you have to know where to be. You have to understand all of the elements of his defense because he plays a lot of zone. And so even though you're a pass rusher, he does stunt at times. And these are things that Zadarius Smith should be quite familiar with. He's played in these kind of defenses before, so it's not going to be that big of an issue. I just thought it was funny how lackluster Vic seemed about it. But if we're just going by, I think you'll appreciate this sentiment. The whole back of the baseball card thing, like you are what you are. Darius Smith should be a pretty good addition, and I would think he'd be the number 3 at some point in this year, and who knows when it'll be, probably sooner than later. He'll be your a big part of your 3-man rotation. It's clear to me Vic likes a 3-man edge rotation, which is different from coordinators past. Jim Schwartz loved to play like 4, 5, 6 guys and keep them rotating both on the inside and outside. Vic rotates far less than other coordinators we've seen, and it's really just a 3-man rotation of Jaylen Hunt, Nolan Smith, and it was Uche with Ojulari inactive. We'll see if that's that kind of surprised me. Going back to the whole back of the baseball card thing, I know Ojulari didn't have a great camp, but his numbers are pretty consistent for, with his years with the Giants when healthy. Pretty good pass rusher, but again, maybe it's in this scheme he's not as been as effective. But Darius Smith will eventually get in there, and probably soon. Maybe not, against the Chiefs, but we'll see week 3, week 4. I tend to inclined to think, watching the tape and the game, that they'd like to see a little bit more, or they know that Jaylen Hunt had a nice end of the year last year, but is really just a year 2 guy and still is new to position and not ready to just be a starter who's going to go out there and give you starting edge production that you need to be a really good defense.
We're talking to Jeff Mosher here from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice. And Jeff, keeping it with the defense here, we know what happened in the Super Bowl, the way they're able to dominate the Chiefs and the way they're able to get pressure. When you look at the first week performance and what they need to apply to the competition, obviously with the Chiefs this weekend, and let's all call it what it is, we have to put the context to Carter not being there for week 1 for the entire game. What do you think has to be better for them in week 2? The back end, that secondary, or that pressure up front? More, at least.
Well, probably the pressure up front. Now, they're going to be without Rashee Rice. He's suspended. And I haven't seen it officially, but I have a hard time thinking Xavier Worthy's going to be back if he has a dislocated shoulder. I think that was the diagnosis on him from the hit that he took. It was sort of a friendly fire thing from Kelsey on a crossing route where we ran into each other. So a Chiefs offense without Rashee Rice and without Xavier Worthy, I mean, now you're down to, I get it, Travis Kelce's still a guy who can make some plays, and Marquise Brown had 10 catches for 99 yards. When has ever a Chiefs receiver caught 10 passes and not even had 100 yards? So I think that's and this is a Chiefs team that was really trying this preseason and going into this year to try to get back to being a vertical offense. They really haven't had that. So, I mean, without those 2 guys, if Marquise Brown, who's not a bad receiver, but certainly not, not a guy that you like CeeDee Lamb, right? If that's their number 1 target out there, I think the secondary is not going to be, scared to death. So as long as you get a good pass rush and don't give Mahomes time to pick you apart and, find guys in the zone like Kelsey or Marquise Brown, then they should be all right. So I would say the pass rush it's got to be on them to get the job done.
And taking the other side of the ball for the last one here, Jeff, plenty of conversation about the passing offense, getting A.J. Brown involved. From your estimation, going back, looking back at that game for the Birds, what stuck out most about the passing offense from week 1?
Well, not one single ball outside of the 51-yarder to A.J. Brown traveled more than 9 yards in the air. I mean, and that's not you're asking me what stuck out. I'm not saying that's a negative, a positive, or anything. I just think that's what stuck out. I think, obviously, if you're going to have that kind of game plan where everything is very short and fast and quick, you have to be decisive, and Jalen Hurts was. I know he had 4 incompletions, but 3 of them were on throwaway. So I think really only one, and one was a drop, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was only one ball Jalen Hurts threw that hit the ground that was, say, his fault. So that's pretty good. He was very, very efficient. But to the point in the question you're asking, they're not really built to play that way all the time. They're built to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, which they didn't do very well, and then hop a few of those down the field to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Usually we're good for 2, 3, or 4 of those a game. I would expect that was a little bit of an anomaly and that you will see that more, especially because the Chiefs are a little bit more aggressive defensively. The Cowboys played, if I'm not mistaken, Ray, I think they played zone on every single defensive snap. And if not every, it was over 90%. I don't think you'll see that from the Chiefs. They tend to be aggressive. You know, Steve Spagnuolo likes to throw some bodies at you and man you up on the back end. So there should be some opportunities for AJ.
Yeah, and certainly a departure from the explosive play conversation that I feel like we've had on repeat for the entirety of the Sirianni tenure here, where they just want to generate explosives and make things happen.
Yeah, and you know the history. Like, this has happened before where AJ hasn't had a target or a big game, or same thing with Devontae, and then the next game you see like almost a force feeding of the ball going that way. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if by the end of the first quarter on Sunday, if AJ Brown or Devontae or both each have a pretty big explosive play.
Sirianni loves to bring up Week 1 in 2022 with the Lions, where Devontae didn't get anything. That's his go-to. If he has to go through an experience about talking about this, he's going to say, hey, remember 2022? So I'm sure that we're going to see that again. Just like last year, the Panthers and the Steelers game. You know, I think I'm on the same wavelength with you there. Jeff, always great to talk with you. Always great to have you. Appreciate you joining us today. We'll talk to you down the line.
Awesome, Ray. Have a great one. Thanks for having me on.
Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds and Philly Voice. Nearly combined the two right there. But always great talking with Jeff there. We'll react to that coming up. Plus, tonight, Phillies, Mets. Big one down at the bank. Can they get back-to-back against the Mets? We'll talk about it coming up. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the Midday Show here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Hey, everybody.
We're talking to Tim McManus here of ESPN, and a lot was made, I know, certainly by us, and just in talking leading up to the game, some callers, fans we were getting reaction from, about the new offensive coordinator and how it would look. How did you assess, kind of going deeper into that point you just brought up of Hurts and Patulo in the operation, how did you assess the operation from a full game standpoint, given how hot it started and then how stagnant it got a little bit late?
Well, the fact that it started out hot is different. I mean, if we remember back from last year and people pulling their hair out because they couldn't score in the first quarter, that was a storyline that lasted, into November, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
We got to do the old
slow start.
Julio Jones is the last Eagle to have a first quarter touchdown. I remember breaking out that stat every week for about 2 months.
Yeah, and then here they came right out of the gates and they scored some touchdowns. So at least that puts that narrative to bed and shows that Patulo had a game plan that was effective early on, and then things slowed down. It's kind of a weird game to assess because both offenses really started to stall after the delay of game, and nobody could be stopped, before the Lightning came, and then after the Lightning came, nobody could score. So how much of that is Patulo adjustments, etc. There were a couple corner blitzes in succession that I watched where the offense just didn't really seem to have a great answer for. So I don't think it was a perfect game for Patulo. I think there are things to clean up, but I think if you look at it as a whole, the fact that it's his first game calling plays, first game working that operation with Jalen Hurts, and that they got off to that fast start, there's probably more encouraging things than not to build off of.
Speaking of encouraging, Jahad Campbell just absolutely, I thought, acquitted himself more than adequately. Playing alongside a guy like Zach Bohm, I think that Vic Fangio, for me, a guy like Vic Fangio that wants to be able to run certain things, he's got 2 guys that are going to be able to run, I think, everything that he would like to run. You gave him car keys to 2 Maseratis, and I think that this is something that I think he's going to get better. He's still going to make those mistakes, and you're going to see that, but I would think that that's a guy that certainly has turned a lot of heads and has given into some of the expectations at this point early on.
An embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Right? What who are we? Who are we?
What is going on? I don't even know who we are anymore. And Campbell, I agree. What a debut. He flashed every day during training camp. It wasn't always perfect. In fact, I think in pass coverage, was really sometimes where it got shaky. I remember a couple times that he gave up, whether it was a wheel route against Will Shipley or a touchdown to where he blew an assignment during the joint practices against the Browns, and you're like, okay, the passing game's maybe where he needs some refinement. And then you see that play where he just carries the field with Ferguson and comes up with that PBU. And it's like, linebackers really don't do that. So you recognize that you have a special talent. And to your point, Amy, it's paired with another special talent in Zach Baun, who has a similar skill set in that way. That just opens up so many things. Like, while we're talking about the restrictions in the secondary with the questions at safety and CB2 in particular, the flip side of that for Fangio is that if you have two linebackers like that, man, how creative can you get? And what different looks can you present an offense that they're not normally presented because they just don't have that ability at the linebacker position? So it's a new day in Philadelphia, I guess.
Final segment for us before Unfiltered takes over at 2 o'clock. Forward to listening. I actually don't even think I've talked to Billy C today. Not even a bit. I haven't seen him. Huh. Well, we'll see what they got cooking at 2 o'clock on Unfiltered. I'm Ray Dunn, taking you through the midday show. Sean Rodman producing the program today. Just spoke with Jeff Mosher. Appreciate him joining us from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice. And Jeff, I'm glad that he's one of those people when he's, when he validates my questioning of something, it certainly holds weight with me. I appreciate his validation there with my thought on the Tank Bigsby trade. It's not that I'm against the trade. I'm particularly intrigued by giving up multiple draft picks for Bigsby specifically, given what you have right now. That he doesn't necessarily fit the Will Shipley role. The only thing he does that Will Shipley really does, outside of being a running back and carrying the football, is be a kick returner. He's not particularly effective in the pass game, not particularly effective pass blocking, or necessarily hasn't been asked to do it. Where are we trying to fit him in here with the current roster? It looks like A.J. Dillon might be going. I think both Jeff and I think we're down that same wavelength, Sean. I think that was the one thing I took away. He was right there with me. Am I reading this trade?
Yeah, he was right there with you on that one. It is interesting to see what happens with A.J. Dillon. He got a couple of runs on Thursday night after Shipley went out and wasn't terrible by any means, but definitely shows you kind of what they think of him.
Yeah. And Zadarius Smith showing you what they think of the depth they have. And also, I know they're into saying Jalen Hunt's the guy, but maybe take a little bit of his snap count as well. I mean, here's a guy that's had 9 sacks. And also talking about this matchup on Sunday, needing the pass rush more than you need the secondary, given the personnel available for the Chiefs, was another big thing for him.
The one thing that I saw that I took out of that as well from Jeff Mosher was staying with a 3-man rotation at the edge. And that was kind of even adding in Zadarius Smith into the equation. I know he won't be necessarily ready for this week, but it's interesting to note that, yeah, he does like 3 men kind of in a rotation rather than 4 or 5 guys, but how does that line up going into the year with the rest of the season with when you mentioned Jalen Hunt? Is Josh Uche going to stay in that role? Does he get more reps? Will either Zadarius Smith or Ojulari get in there at all?
Yeah. Yeah, there's more coming to that. There's got to be more coming to that room. Someone's leaving that room. Someone's being voted off the island here with Zadarius Smith getting here. We'll see who it is. Tonight, because we got a couple minutes left here. Phillies, Mets. Ranger Suarez on the bump for the Phils against Sean Manaea. Can tonight be the night where they tee off on Manaea? I'm so over the Manaea. Oh, he changed his arm angle. Oh, he's so good against the Phillies thing. I'm just so sick of it. I really am. I know it's very childish to really be this bothered by the whole thing. But please, can tonight be the night? His ERA on the road is 6.5. I feel like the Phillies are the one team that he's had success against this year. That's it. Can I just be done with the Sean Manaea thing where it's, oh yeah, look at what he is. He's so great against, and the Phillies historically obviously have that Padres series, but now I'm going to drop into the whole announcer thing. He changed his arm angle. It's really changed how effective he is at this level. Yada, 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 yada. Just hit the guy tonight. All right, please. I'm begging you. And I get it. It's a left-hander. against a lineup that just lost 2 right-handed regulars in Turner and Bohm to the injured list. So I'm probably asking too much. I'm very interested to see what they do at second base against the lefty. Does Stott play, or do they keep some sort of a... I don't even know how they're going to pull that one off with the personnel. Like, would it be Weston Wilson that they throw out there at second? Or Wilson at third, Kemp at second, and then Marsh plays against lefty? I feel like you have to play one of them against the lefty, right? One of them has to get out there.
Yeah, one of them has to play now, especially because you lost 2 right-handed bats.
And Walton, it's left-handed. So it's not going to be Walton. He's certainly not getting the opportunity here. So has to be one of them because you got to play someone at third. Like Kemp could be at third, or maybe you put Kemp at second, Wilson at third, Wilson at second, Kemp at third, and then you leave Marsh in there. Bader, Castellanos plays tonight. Mind-boggling what they're going to go through. The lineup last night, I guess we didn't get too into this today, and shame on me. Harper batting leadoff. Revenge of the nerds, man. I love it. Let's get wild. If half the infield's going to be out, you're not going to have Turner, you're not going to have Bohm. Let's get nuts. Let's just see how it works. I don't think it's going to last very long because Harper said in the past he doesn't like batting leadoff. But they approached him with it. He was like, let's do it. Let's get nuts. Let's get wild with it. I don't know. Tonight against the lefty, do I think he bats leadoff? Maybe not. Maybe they'll go to Schwarber, then put a right-handed bat, and then drop Harper back down to 3. But I'm okay with them getting a little chaotic here. It's a chaotic roster right now. It was kind of hilarious that everything happens Monday afternoon. Turner, Bohm, both to the injured list. And that's the night they beat the Mets. That's the night that they end up beating the Mets, is when they lose half of their infield. And you've got Nola against the flashy phenom rookie. Of course, that's how it works. Tonight, Suarez, Minaya. Suarez been good as of late. Let's keep that going. And please, for the love of baseball, can they just hit Minaya tonight? I am asking for a lot, but I'm asking for not too much. Let's just crush this guy. I'm so sick of the storylines around this guy. We'll react with you about it tomorrow, coming up on the Midday Show. Sean Rodman, tremendous job producing the show. Thanks to Todd Zeleki, Jeff Mosher for joining us today. Plenty more to get into tomorrow. More about that Eagles-Chiefs matchup. Start really breaking that down. We can officially turn the page on Week 1 and get to that coming tomorrow. Of course, Phillies-Mets reaction. I'm Ray Dunn. Hope to talk to you again real soon right here on Midday Show, 97.5 The Fanatic.